Huh? Thank you, Mr. Fields. You were right, Harry. Jerry's on it. The last time this happened, I think we stood and faced the flag that's in the corner of the parking lot. If we need to, maybe Jerry will find one back there. Who has their American flag pin? Yes, he is looking back there. Well, since we have a moment, make sure you've silenced your telephone so that it doesn't ring in the middle. Oh, yay. Oh, yay. Oh, yeah, no, that doesn't go with the flag, I don't think. Yeah. All right. I would like to thank Jerry McKinnon for bringing our colors here for us. All right. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. We do have a quorum. We have 4 directors and 12 applicants. 11 applicants, I think, right now. Yes, 11. So let me explain kind of how we're going, well, not kind of, let me explain how we are going to do this process today. And I want to make sure that if there's anything that the directors would like to change about this suggested structure that I'm going to describe. Yeah, thank you. What we'll do is we are going to give each of the applicants a total of 6 minutes. You can use all that time to talk to us about yourself, or you can use any amount of it, and then the remainder will be for Q&A from directors. Following that, we will have public comment for this item, because this is the only item on the agenda. And then it will come back to the board, and the board will have an opportunity to discuss if there's candidates we would like to ask more questions of, get more in depth with, because then we will be able to spend the amount of time we need to do the job and make sure that everybody is treated with fairness in terms of the time that they have. So if that sounds like that's an okay process and there's no objection, Director Berenger?
Yes, I have a suggestion.
Please.
And that is that perhaps we can limit the initial comment by each applicant to 3 minutes, with 3 minutes allowed for question and answer. And there's a distinct advantage of if one person, have it 2 sections, everybody gives their talk, and then a question is made alternately to each other person, so that one person doesn't have the advantage of listening to somebody else's answers from the directors. Let me give you an example. Everybody gives an opportunity to talk, and David Pearson is the first person to get some questions after he's heard everybody's 3-minute pitch. Then the next director gets ask a question to Mr. McKinnon, because he has the advantage of already finding out what Dave Pearson's answer was. So and I don't know if that's what you were thinking. If you were thinking of giving everybody 6 minutes and then we all talk to one guy, every director talks to one guy.
Yeah, I was thinking one at a time, and then those questions as part of that initial introductory time will be kind of additional questions that will help us determine if we want to do further. Right. I'm kind of picturing a pseudo 2-step process so that we get.
But then the person that's at the end has heard everybody's question, has heard everybody's answer, and has somewhat of an advantage in being able to position their answer. So I'm trying to make it so that it's not where the guy at the end
right
has.
I guess
the
I wasn't
advantage.
imagining we would give them all the same exact questions
from
us.
Oh yeah, but
which is what we had for, we had those responses to the same questions as part of the application. But I'm open. Director Sanders, Vice President Sanders?
I'm sensitive to Director Beringer's comment about applicants having an advantage if they hear everybody else's response. And I think what he suggested is a good one.
So we do the introductions and then do questions?
And then do questions, but
Yeah.
maybe one director asks one question for the first one, and then, I don't know.
I think that no matter which way we do it, if they all get the same question, we're going to have the same issue, right?
Director Farmer, do you have any input? Because I don't know what to do.
First, I want to ask some clarification. After they do their initial presentation, are we going to be asking them while they're still standing at the podium?
That's what I was thinking.
Okay. Personally, I've prepared questions for almost all of the applicants, and they vary with regard to the comments that the applicants have made in their applications. It's not all the same question to everybody.
Mhm.
Okay, so, and I appreciate that direction from Mr. Farmer. So your thought was 6 minutes, 3 of which they make a presentation, and they're limited to 3 minutes to answer questions from.
For the
The board.
initial round,
Okay.
and then once we have public comment, we'll bring it back to the board to see how we want to proceed
Great.
in terms of asking further in-depth questions.
Okay, with that in
So the
mind,
initial questions would be more related to whatever their introduction, or if they had something on the application that you wanted to find out.
okay, and is the seating random?
They were given numbers at random,
Okay.
so yes.
All right.
And then told they didn't have to sit any place specific, but yes, they got random numbers.
Then I'll yield to the president's suggestion.
Now, do the applicants understand the process? Because that's the most important part. You're going to have 6 minutes. If you don't want to use all 3 and leave more time for Q&A, I really want to give you the discretion to do that. If you don't, then if you want to do 3 and 3, that's fine.
So if we speak for 6 minutes, then there will be no Q&A?
Until the second round, if we want to find out more. Yes.
And Madam President,
Yes,
that limits us as well.
correct.
Okay.
At least for this first round.
that's
But I don't want to
good.
limit us in general either. That we will get it through first and get to know who you are first, and then we can go from there.
So I have another question.
Yes,
I have been told by AGP that the timer isn't working.
that is correct.
So how do we resolve that dilemma?
Didn't I have somebody in the back saying they'll count 1,000? No, I've got my, that's good. People have laughter. That's a good thing. I do have a timer on my, a timer on my fancy schmancy iPad here.
Yeah. But the disadvantage there is that the applicants don't have any idea how long they've been speaking.
They do, because I will hold it up for them.
I see, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm hoping that's the idea.
Hopefully it'll be readable from a distance, right?
Hopefully you're right. I think it will be, because I think what we're going to be able to do is, boom, let's make sure that everybody can see that. Can you see that? No, you can't. Well, I can't do anything about that. No, what we're going to do is we are going to, I was all set and then the timer broke.
Oh,
Can
yeah,
you see
there
that?
we go. Right on.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Reichart. That's a problem solver right there. Yep, thank
Give
you
that
very
man
much.
a bottle of wine.
No, give him some water.
You're right.
All right, and I gave out numbers. Everybody got a number, and it's on your card. Who got number 1?
I did.
Oh, right on. Okay, so if you would like to be at the podium, it will help the folks that are here.
Okay. You still use this or use that? Okay.
That way the folks that are here in the audience can see you better too, because you'll be on the camera. Start. They have 6 minutes total. Can you just hold up for 3 minutes?
Yes,
I'll start
I am.
mine too, so we can keep track here.
Lucky me to be first out of the box. My name is Mark Harrier. I am a native of the Central Coast. I was born and raised in Lompoc. I've spent my whole life here in this part of the world. I bought my first house here 30 years ago and have became a full-timer 5 years ago. And so I have been here as a tourist, as a part-timer, and now as a full-timer. And during that entire time, I have seen how the letters to the editor, the headlines, could be pretty much juxtaposed on any given year at any given time in all that 30 years, and it always has come down to growth, no growth, adequate water, not enough water. I think it was pretty much decided during the last election. We have a plant now that is coming online, and we have, I think, for the most part, solved the water problem. There are obviously lots of problems that need to be solved, but we don't gain anything by constantly bickering over facts. The facts are that we all agree that we want to turn on our tap and water come out of it. We all agree that we don't want to be victims of a drought. We all agree that we don't make enough money from our fees to cover all of the services and the maintenance, and that there's been deferred maintenance and all sorts of problems with infrastructure, and that funding those things is a serious problem and something that needs to be addressed. As far as growth, nobody in this community wants this to become Monterey or Carmel or Santa Barbara. And the blessing and the curse is that we have limited water supply, so it will never happen. The other blessing has been determined that we can't grow beyond our current footpath. So all of the articles about developers coming in, if you read, sometimes you believe they're all lined up outside of town, ready to put a Walmart in Limerick Estates. That's never, ever, ever going to happen. I would be at the front of the line to discourage that. But in nature, something is either growing or it's decaying. And you can grow like a weed, which nobody wants, or you could grow like a sequoia, which can last for 2,000 years. And so I would hope that we could try to find the common ground where we're talking about solving a problem rather than arguing about whether it actually really exists. And there's a lot of water under the bridge, and not so much under the bridge from the past, that I think gets in the way of us moving forward in the future, and I would love to try to help beyond that bridge.
That was great. And don't leave yet. Directors have questions?
Yeah, I'm going to ask Mr. Harrier a quick question. You know, I appreciate the fact that you were one of the few applicants that actually addressed the natural beauty of our town, and you know, I really appreciate that. You know, you mentioned in the questions here that you were concerned about the drama and false narratives, rumors and pitfalls that have plagued the CCSD since you've been here.
Yes.
Could you give me a couple of examples of those?
The notion that if we solve our water problem, that will then open unlimited development. That's been an ongoing meme. I've seen it for the last 30, 35 years since I've been a part of this town, and I truly believe it is simply not true. There are things in place that prohibit it. We can only build out to our current footprint, meaning that we can only, this is law, we can only develop the existing lots. And so the question becomes with growth is not, do we have a Walmart? We're never going to have that. Not, do we have a Taco Bell on every corner? That will never happen. It's impossible. The county won't allow it. We will all agree on that we don't want that kind of ridiculous growth. So the question becomes, the elephant in the room is the moratorium. The elephant in the room is what to do with the people who've been on a waiting list for 20 years. once we have the adequate water supply. And so it becomes a growth. Do we do it like a weed? Of course not. Do we do it like a sequoia? I think so. So the false narrative that suddenly we solve our problem and suddenly we have, targets everywhere, that's a false narrative. And we've spent 30 years cutting off our nose to spite our face and avoiding solving the problem once and for all of our inadequate water supply because of that false narrative.
I just had a quick question. In terms of what you know about the board and what the district is doing, what do you think that you will bring to the seat that's open?
I think
that we don't kind of currently, in a way that we don't.
I think public relations is an ongoing issue, so much so that hiring a firm to solve the public relations only made even a bigger public relations snafu. So I think that this sort of forum where people come up and talk for 3 minutes and don't really get an interaction is inadequate to tell the story and inadequate for us to communicate with each other. I would suggest that maybe a weekly or bi-weekly coffee clatch where a board member or a few board members would meet in the community and people could come and we could hash it out and talk about it and say, yeah, no, this is what our problem is, what's the solution, rather than us arguing at each other 3 minutes at a time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Good.
We will, thank you very much. All right. I don't see, did Jeff get here? Okay. So then, Bob Kelly, welcome.
I am Robert Kelly. I've lived in Cambria for 16 years. You've been given a copy of my resume, so I will just summarize my management background. I have 36 years in small government public management background. I was a recreation and park director, a community services director, a city manager for 14 years, and an executive officer for the state of California. I do possess, which I think will help our community here, quite a bit of knowledge about wastewater treatment plant, which I positive is our next project. I've had to go through the rehabilitation of that twice, and even one of them was a lawsuit. Also, I've had quite a bit of experience with water filtration, digging wells, and storage of water and water monitoring. That's just part of what you live with pesticides in the San Joaquin Valley. My budgeting experience, I'm a great believer in what's called zero-based budgeting, and I believe that could help us come down and find the foundation of our finances here and work our way up from that. I have created a theme village, which took a town from the red and put it into the black. I am recommending something like that here, and I will explain that later if you're interested. I possess a doctor's degree in public administration from Brigham Young University. My doctorate program was special because it was tailored towards my job and the future of my occupation in public administration. As I said, I've been a volunteer here 16 years. I was a pros commissioner with Greg for 4 years. And in the year 2001, Mr. Hamilton asked me if I could help the pros commission develop their goals and objectives for the community and work on this new project that was going to be called the Ranch. In doing that, Joan Colbin and I spent 2 weekends with a workshop asking the individuals what they wanted to see take place in our community as it pertained to parks, recreation, and open space. Interestingly enough, the 4 subjects that came out were tennis courts, a ranch use plan, and a park in the ranch, and also a youth center, because we were just given the bank building, and we're going to have it downtown as a youth center. Interestingly enough, almost all four of those have been completed. At that point,
I just want to let you know that we're halfway through, just so you know.
Okay, yes, I'm fine.
Okay.
Okay, also at that point, I was asked to work on the ranch use plan, and the four of us did for 6 months, commenting, editing, and preparing the plan. The next 9 months, we spent on the EIR on the ranch use plan. After that, I worked with Bob Greshams on the Santa Rosa Creek Steelhead Project, many of the pockets, parks in town, and then I spent the time with the ranch committee photographing all 450 slides of the flora and fauna, wildlife, the erosion problem possibly on the ranch, potential trails and things like that. Then after that, I worked with the lot reduction team, and I evaluated the lots for them with a matrix, and I was very proud to say that we retired 22 lots in 2 years. I've been a volunteer here for 16 years with the Lions Club Board of Directors, the Fishing Club. 7 of us helped start the pickleball park, and one of my favorite was the dog park. And we helped raise the money for John and his family for the dog park, and over a weekend of heavy rain, 4 of us built the dog park. I worked 2 summers ago on the block fire evacuation plan, and found out that we have 800 people living alone. People don't know their neighbors. Sometimes they're surrounded by vacation homes. So I started a buddies program, and that led to the emergency alert pennants, and that's why I'm wearing this shirt today. I'm sorry I'm not in a jacket and tie.
You have about 1 minute left,
Yes.
just to let you know.
I'm okay. We raised $4,300, purchased 18 pennants, and given out 13 so far. I am politically neutral. I belong to only 2 groups, CAN, and I am the information officer for the Chamber of Commerce. I'm interested in filling Director Thompson's remaining term, but I don't want to see us spend $80,000 on a special election. I would like to see how I do for the next 14 months, and then let the community decide on who they want to be their director. Thank you.
Thank you. We have about 30 seconds left. Does anyone have a question? Okay.
Let me ask one quick question.
Would you please, yeah.
Mr. Kelly, are you saying that you would not run, or you would run?
I would say I would run, but I'd like to see in this 14 months how compatible I am with the board, to see if we all can work together for common goals and compromise.
Accepted.
Thank you.
We have a slight numbering problem. We inadvertently put 6 twice, so if Mr. Cristando could represent number 9, that would be wonderful.
I should have drawn a line under this. Thank you, Mr. Cristando. All right, I've made this high-tech solution, so I'm going to hold these up when you get to a certain time, and I apologize to Mark and to Bob for not having this at the very beginning. But I think this will help everyone know where they are in their 6 minutes.
Could I make another recommendation with regard to the timer? You know, it's running from 0 to 6. If we could have it in descending order, so the person can look over and immediately see how much time they have left, as opposed to how much time has expired, might make it just a little bit easier.
All right. Number 4. It looks like, Dwayne, are you number 4? Mr. Lee, please. I want to thank our staff for rolling with the punches here. I appreciate that. And for the applicants as well, and the director, everybody. Thank you.
Okay. Madam President, Board, staff, members of the audience. My name is Dwayne Lee. We moved here just about 5 years ago from the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and we have thoroughly enjoyed living on the central coast of California. I started volunteering out at the Discovery Center and am a docent at the Discovery Center and have been for a little over 4 years. I also work with state parks in their Elephant Seal Ambassador Program, which has been really a rewarding thing because the elephant seals have come back in such number that they are starting to come down to the beach there in San Simeon, and what the ambassador program does there is make sure that not only for the safety of the animal, but for the safety of our visiting guests from all over the world, that they stay a safe distance and we don't have anybody getting hurt. It's not an authoritative type situation or where, we are doing anything except, we make suggestions and talk to the people and tell them, why they shouldn't get that close. I was self-employed for over 25 years, owning and managing 2 retail office supplies. The first one that I owned was in a small town in West Texas called La Mesa. Population about 12,000 people. And while in La Mesa, I served on many boards. Was a member of the Rotary Club, served on the board of directors there, also served in the Chamber of Commerce on quite a few boards, and eventually was president of the Chamber of Commerce 1 year. Of course, right after accepting the president's job of the chamber, the general manager got a better job somewhere else, so I was left with the chamber and no general manager. So filling both spots for the first 6 months was quite educational. After spending about 14 years in La Mesa, I had an opportunity to buy a larger store in Amarillo, Texas, which I did and lived there for about the next 15 years. While there, we also branched out and opened and operated a scuba diving training center called Scuba Training Center, where I taught scuba diving and sold equipment and escorted groups on dive travel to the Caribbean. Also, I served a very rewarding time with the West Texas Girl Scout Council in Abilene. Having 2 girls, I felt like I needed to, give something back to one of the organizations that they were very much involved in. So that kind of gives you a little idea of my background, being in business for yourself. Of course, you have to learn how to manage employees, because having in Amarillo 15 employees, these were like family members. Not only was I responsible for making a success of the business, but you've also got the responsibility of making sure that these employees have a job. So there's quite a bit of pressure on that. The amount of budgeting and stuff that you have to do to own your own business is something that you learn, and it was very enjoyable. So
You have 2 minutes remaining.
Little background. So that's kind of where I've been. I believe that I have the experience and the background to serve on this board. There are many urgent and complex water treatment, delivery, and removal challenges the board needs to address. Working together to solve these with the help of staff and public input, these projects and problems can be resolved. We must always remember to keep in mind what makes Cambria such a special place for us to live here, and the thousands from all over the world who visit and keep our local businesses healthy. That's our beautiful environment. Like walking the trail on the Fiscalini Ranch Preserves or Moonstone Beach and seeing whales out in the ocean. When you go to the pier at San Simeon and watch an otter feeding, or when you see seals sunning themselves on the rocks, or look up and see an eagle soaring overhead, it's easy to see how protecting our environment has paid off. Take a walk through Strawberry Canyon, or just relax and enjoy the quiet at Creekside Reserve. What special places. I saw a story on the news a few days ago, and I want this to happen more here in Cambria. It shows how there is help for large infrastructure projects, and the whole burden does not have to fall on the rate and taxpayers. The article says, Santa Maria Fire giving $1 million grant for new fire truck, August the 15th, 2017, courtesy of KSBY Photo. I will work hard to get all kinds of grant money for Cambria, as well as spend our money where our needs are most justified.
Could you wrap up?
Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. If there's any burning questions, otherwise we can go. We've got a calliope here. I like it. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Lee. I know nobody has their ringer on, which is a good thing. We don't want to confuse people. David Pearson. I want to remind you, you're going to have 6 minutes total. If you'd like to leave some time for Q&A for the board members, you may, or you can use all your 6 to introduce yourself.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Board members, audience, my name is David Pearson. My wife and I have been vacationing here since the 1990s. We were fortunate enough about 4 years ago to buy a home here. And then about 2 years ago, after I retired, we moved here. Since then, I have tried to be as active as I can in the community and getting to know what's going on. I have attended just about every CCSD meeting, and those that I missed, I watched on replay, which are very nice because you're able to fast forward in certain segments, which helps out. You can't do that with real time, no. Over the last 3 days, I've really thought about what the real issues are, and as I answer your questions, I think some of them are moving ahead with the sewer issues and making sure we've got the right rate structure and that kind of thing. But I think the biggest overwhelming issue is communication with the community as a whole. It just is not making sense to a lot of people, and that's why we're seeing a lot of people coming forward, which I think is wonderful. One of the things that I think would really help out with the communication is getting some more metrics for the community and having the general manager talk about those each time that he has his monthly report. You know, the chief of the fire department and the sheriff both do a very good job of using metrics to tell us exactly what they actually did for the last month and what their challenges are for the next month. The general manager does an excellent job of summarizing what he does for the month, but I think he needs a scorecard to give the community a better idea as to what he really does. A lot of the information is buried in the minutes of the meetings, but it's very difficult to go through there and really see what's going on in the community. And if the general manager were to put up a scorecard, and I'd give you an instance, how many permits did he have this month? Okay, and not only how many permits, but how long did it take them to approve each one? Did it take 10 days? Did it take a week to approve an average permit? Those kinds of scorecards would be helpful, and it would also give a better communication. I'd also think that we could better use the Cambrian, which is our local newspaper, to give more information to the community. And maybe it's a weekly interview with the general manager on what his challenges are. Maybe it's a weekly scorecard that's published in the Cambrian, just to get the word out and get us more information. As I said, I've only been here a couple of years, but I think I could add some new ideas and fresh perspective to the board if I was chosen. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there directors who would like to ask further questions? Director Farmer.
Hi. Mr. Pearson, I appreciate some of your, well, not so much outside-the-box comments and suggestions, but it's nice of you to do that. I just kind of want to ask you one thing right now. You mentioned that you've only been here 2 years, but obviously you've already tried to get yourself as well informed as possible. But I did notice on the application, and it's optional, of course, with regard to putting down 3 references, but you didn't put down any references. Was any particular reason for that?
I wanted to keep them local, and I didn't feel that I could burden anyone. I've joined the American Legion, and there are several people on the Legion that I think I could use as references as to what I do and things, including Director Sanders, but I didn't feel like burdening local people, and I didn't want to put down people from back in Virginia where I came from. So.
Well, you seem like a pretty cool guy. I don't think folks would have seen it as a burden. If you had put down Director Sanders, we could have made up our mind right there. No, just kidding. Just kidding.
I do know David
Thank you.
Pearson quite well, Director Farmer. He went to the Naval Academy as I did, and we've conversed a lot, and he is trying to get very close to the issues, and I appreciate that.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any further? All right. Thank you, Director Berenger, for your input and for your questions, Director Farmer. All right. Number 6, Mr. McKinnon.
Afternoon.
Good afternoon. It's
I
nice
was
to
somewhat
see you.
shocked by the loss of Mike and the upcoming loss of Director Sanders. It's going to create a tremendous hole in the board. I believe that I have qualifications that begin with being a director in 2008, 2012. And during that time, I was under Director Sanders being president. I spearheaded a failed budget that was refused by the public in 2018, and in doing so, we recovered and presented really a stripped-down organization that was very effective. And I think through the period that we did have, the 4 years I was on the board, I can remember the time with Jim Berenger where infrastructure was of prime concern. It was a very difficult period economically for our country as well as Cambria itself. And I think we did what we had to. And in fact, it was a very positive time where by the end of our term, and the 2012 I was president, I thought we left the board with communications between itself and the community in a much more trusting, much more accepting manner. And I felt very comfortable when I did leave for personal reasons. I sort of missed it, but in other ways I didn't miss it. I think my 35 years experience in both project management, and in an example of that, I was the I guess you'd call it the project manager of the 1G trainer electric vehicle that was used in Apollo for the moon. It was the exact equivalent, all the interfaces for the astronauts to train, basically in Oceana Dunes and so forth, Houston. I was president of a lift truck company, and in that capacity, I was responsible for all functions. And my wife and I started on our own in a small town in upstate New York, a high-tech electric vehicle company that was certainly a challenge, but it really explained from beginning to end of how a corporate or any entity works. And in doing so, one of the strengths that I think I brought not only to the CCSD board, but also to the future. Does that say 3? Okay, I got 2020, that's not bad. One of the things I brought was conflict resolution. And I think someone mentioned the elephant in the room, and the elephant room, I think it was by Mark, that's saying that's really the wait list, and that's the issue. My thought is, it's one and only. We have budget problems, and I think we have to tackle them. I would reflect upon a similar organization. Templeton has 7,700 people, has about 2,800 connections, water connections. It has a total budget of $5.3 million. We have a budget that's double that. And there really isn't a tremendous difference between what they're producing, fire, water, sewer, what have you, in Templeton. One of the things I think that needs to be done, I certainly support our project that we have in San Simeon for EWS, for the emergency water system. I think we have a solution if we can ever get approval. I think CDM should be held accountable for the failures of really a flawed design. I know that Jim Berenger initially proposed a portable unit that was decided wasn't appropriate at the time, but we have what we have, and there's no arguing. What is. We have the responsibility of a $13 million asset that is out there sitting, and we have the responsibility of finding uses for it beyond EWS and the Sustainable Water Facility. There has to be uses for it, and I can think of several. As an engineer, one of the wonderful things you have is you start off with distilled water. Just imagine soft water for this community and the elimination of all the effort we go through to take our hard water and to make it what we want to use for homes. So there's a lot of opportunities that we have if I'm elected, chosen, whatever. I think I can make a positive addition to the team. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions? All right, thank you very much. I got the creaky microphone today, sorry folks. All right. Mr. Wharton. I just want to make sure you remember that you can save some of your time for Q&A if you'd like, but you don't need to.
Good afternoon, directors, fellow applicants, and CCSD staff. My name is Aaron Wharton, and I'm seeking an appointment to the CCSD Board of Directors. I'm a family man raising my two beautiful daughters alongside my wife here in town. I'm a business owner also, having started and run my own business for almost 6 years here in town. Most importantly, I'm a Cambrian. My wife was born and raised in Cambria, and our family roots trace back to 1969. Since 1992, when I met my wife, I've heard a lot of history about Cambria through Grandma and Grandpa and her parents. And we're seeing the same patterns over and over again. We moved back permanently in 2009 to raise our two children in a better environment. I'm just now getting involved more deeply within the community. My business alone has raised over $10,000 in local charities in the past few years. As a director, I would like to see the implementation of a mission statement, something the board can go to at any time and ask, does this project fit our mission statement? If so, can we afford it? If so, should we proceed? I find myself looking back at my own business mission statement from time to time to get back on track and how to forge ahead. Having such a valuable tool as a mission statement will help build trust back into the community. Hopefully it'll open up communication that will it will help be a tool for communication between the divide that exists in the town. I will strive to bring an open mind to meetings and any conversations with citizens of Cambria as a director. As president on my own business board of directors, I always have the best ideas. How many of those ideas actually make it through? Not many, because they stray from the mission statement at times. They don't add value to the business. In some cases, the ideas may have led to a loss of revenue. Having an open mind is not the only attribute a director should have. They should also listen to the opposing view before they even consider rebuttal in their own minds. Listening first, then formulating an argument. That's what I'll bring to the table. Many people in the community have applauded me for jumping into the fray. They feel I'd make a great director due to my age, the fact that we are raising our family here, and we have a business are all great attributes that would make for a great contribution to what the board than what the board has had in the past. New blood and younger blood is what they're telling me. I'm also not interested in just being a placeholder candidate. I will seek re-election if I'm appointed and let the community decide if my value is worth the time on the board. Thank you for the opportunity today, and I hope I can sit down with each and every one of you and discuss in depth at a later time more views. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wharton. Questions for Mr. Wharton? I have a question, being somebody who's working on a board. Do you think that you'll be able to have enough time and flexibility in your time to serve on the board?
Absolutely. I've talked with several of the directors already, and the amount of time is about 12 to 15 hours, give or take. My flexibility throughout the week is what we strive for, as I like to be flexible. My days in the shop are managed with staff. My days where I'm the only one that can do work, I can pick and choose which days I do those.
Thank you. Director Farmer?
Well, yes, since we have a little bit of time, I just want to ask you a couple of questions with regard to comments that you made on your application. You said operate within an environmental balance. It's one of your, let's say, your objectives and goals. What does that mean? To manage what I feel is almost the inevitable growth rate that might be coming. Cambria back in in the early 80s when my wife was growing up was a smaller town. We've managed to grow to about 6,600 people where we are today. And we've still managed an environmental balance. I think that we can still manage through the build-out reduction plan which lots to retire. We can operate the sustainable water facility when we need to keep support our natural aquifers, to support water supply for fighting fires, which was an ultimate reality that struck us right in the heart of downtown this year, and also to avoid water rationing. I know we're not going to retire here to have to shower in a bucket to flush our toilets. We would like to have a decent water supply. Conservation is always on my mind as a business owner that uses water in my business. We conserve water at every step of the way. Also, it allows businesses the ability to succeed within the environment as well, and to manage the slow and moderate growth rate with regard to the water wait list. I think we can do that all harmoniously. So let me just follow up on that. Since you're the youngest person by far that's applying for this position.
Thank you for noticing.
What is and you've just commented on the balance of growth versus the environmental needs as well. What do you see the town being 20 years from now?
20 years from now, I imagine
you have 20 seconds.
We could probably average 20, 30 homes maybe per year, so maybe get through the water wait list and then call it a day. However many people that brings to town, maybe get up to a comfortable 8,000-ish.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Wharton. All right, who's lucky 7? No, you were 7. You already had 7. Wow, we're going faster than I thought. I thought we were still on 6. All right, then we've got next up Mr. Fields, are you 8?
Madam Chair,
Uh-oh.
members of the board, and all y'all out there in the audience, I am, you better believe it, the carpetbagger from San Simeon. 14 years I lived up in San Simeon, had a nice little life, 12 years on the board. Do I know what a board member goes through? You bet your bottom dollar I do. It's not about anything but homework. Read the notes. Read, we call it the playbook in San Simeon. Know what's going to happen before it does. And then deliberate. Deliberate carefully and together. In 12 years, we took a community with a sewer plant that leaked like a sieve, and now it runs like a clock. We created magic water tertiary water that unfortunately nobody wants. The water available at Rancho San Simeon is much more accessible, shall we say. We have created sustainable water. We're cleaning up the water coming out of the wells. San Simeon has an issue with saltwater intrusion. We've solved the problem. We have the water. Sustainable water, that's the answer here too. What are you going to do with it? You're just going to sit on it? No, you're going to sell it. You're going to sell it into the California Water Project and let somebody come to you to get that water to make the money that this community needs. You can build out, get 10,000 people here, and all the problems that come with it, or you can figure out how to use that water to your advantage. Look at these folks growing grapes here about. They need water, and they're sucking down the aquifer. We can protect the aquifer with sustainable water. Don't be afraid of it. We have a brine pond that can do the magic thing of letting everybody float. There's so much brine that it makes people lighter. They can float and be happy. Try it. Nobody swims in that except for ducks. Nonetheless, that pond is slowly draining itself. Is it evaporation? Is it going someplace? Who knows? But it's going away. And when it's gone, what's going to happen to that hole? Originally, that hole was going to take the first desalination plant's water and process it. Didn't happen. Doesn't mean it won't happen in the future. What it means is the board has decisions to make, and they need to make them in a considerate sort of way that takes everybody's opinion into consideration and at the same time does what's best for the community, not for any one bunch of folks, not for anybody's agenda, but for the community. The community of Cambria, oh boy. I got here in the early 70s. In fact, I was here when the board was founded, when we started digging the holes for the sewer and the water. Yeah, I got my feet dirty in that. Got stuck in the mud several times. But now we have this infrastructure. But 70 water system, it's time to be thinking about how are we going to replace those pipes. Everybody says we got to replace our infrastructure. The infrastructure is the sewer pipes, the infrastructure is the water, and the infrastructure is the sewer plant. It was way over designed back in the 80s, and now it's going to get another design. What are you going to do with that? Let's work on it together. We're going to figure out what to do. There's no doubt about it. I figured out that one can have a really good time while being a board member by not taking yourself too seriously. You can come to agreement. You can move the community forward. My time in the community, let's see, first 30-something years in Cambria. In the last divorce, she got the house, I got the condo in San Simeon, got elected. Raised 6 kids. They're all doing fine. Thank you very much. 3 of them still live here. 3 of them are other places. But they all come to their home. This is our home. The trees, they're slowly dying. The big trees are falling down. The big trees are cutting down. The young trees are coming up. The forest is healthy, but it needs help. And it's not something that you can sit back and let CAL FIRE do for you. The community is going to have to decide to fund the forest management program. There's no doubt about it. You need it. And we see the problems it's created by not having done it sooner. Okay, what do I want to do for all y'all? I want to be the guy that makes everybody smile. Walk away from a meeting feeling good and not angry. Get things done. Whatever it is, let's talk about it first and argue about it later. And we can always have a coffee over it. All right, hit me with your best shot, Harry. Come on.
Well, does anybody else want to ask him a question before I do?
I don't see any other lights.
Well, Alan, you say here, talking about your experience and background that qualifies you to be a board director. You say here in 2004, the the San Simeon CSD, had problems and serious issues with regulatory agencies. But with my fellow directors, we have fixed the problem and the district's on a firm foundation. How did you resolve the serious problems and issues that you had with regulatory agencies?
The first little bit of help was the Coastal Commission and the Water Quality Board and the fines. You have to solve the problem or pay the fine. And part of the solution of the problem was to develop tertiary water to take up some of that fine money. The next thing we did was bring the sewer plant into its design specification. It took some money, it took replacing some parts of it, but we made the existing plant work. Then, when we decided it was time to get clean up the water coming out of the wells because of the intrusion problem. We went forward and got the grant to create our supplemental water program, which is essentially a desal, but it was a maintenance project to clean up the water coming out of the wells. It worked. The water's a whole lot better up there. Salt water is no longer a problem. Well, it's a problem in the ocean, but it's not a problem for the community.
Thanks very much.
Other questions? I just have one. If you are not appointed, can we hire you as somebody to come and lighten the mood? Will you be coming to meetings even if you're not appointed? Because I have to say, a good laugh really does help.
I am a working stiff. I have the pleasure of driving the Regional Transit Authority bus from San Simeon to Morro Bay 3 times a day. But the folks at RTA are cooperative with my political and personal goals. Also, as a Teamster, I'm happy to tell you that today we counted the votes, and overwhelmingly the Teamster membership endorsed the new contract that I sat on the group that created it. So it's a good day for me all the way around. Oh yeah, and it would be my brother's 70th birthday, but he's no longer with us. But I can't stop thinking about him. And I know you want to know what's in the bag, don't you?
I'm not sure. I feel like that's a leading question.
All right, it's easy. A dictionary to understand all the verbiage that one gets from staff and other invited guests. A Bible for those people who swear to God. There it is. And then on the advice of my trainer, a banana and a power bar to get through these meetings. But then I come to this meeting and I see you've got San Simeon style poo-poos. That's really good. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fields. Ronald Costanzo. Good afternoon, Mr. Costanzo.
Good afternoon. I want to thank the board for the opportunity to present my qualifications and to potentially join you in the important work of guiding the Cambria Community Services District. I also want to thank you for your service, each and every one of you, because I know it does take time and it is a commitment. My wife and I bought property here. I was, I think, 28 years old. She was 25. We bought it in 1975. We built a home here in 1984. And then after she passed on and my house in Fresno burned, I moved over here full-time in 2001 and have been here full-time ever since. I've spent my entire career working in the public sector and in all levels of government, federal, state, and local. I have served as an advisor, a consultant, and a problem solver in over 40 different functional areas of local government, from maybe assessor to weights and measures and everything in between. My application contains a list of clients whose functions parallel those of the CCSD, and they include agencies involved with water, sewer, municipal utilities, public works, fire, and parks and recreation. Much of this work included strategic planning with boards, city councils, executive and management teams, organizational reviews and audits to improve operational effectiveness and efficiencies, and the implementation of best practices particular to that particular industry. I'm experienced in all phases of human resources function, including executive search, workload analysis, performance measures, training, testing, counseling, and discipline in labor negotiations. I'm proud of and committed to this community, and I desire really to apply the formidable experience that I have in government, in public policy, and public management to make Cambria a much better community. And I think at that, I'll just throw it open to some questions.
All right, gentlemen, anybody have a specific question for Mr. Costanzo? Director Farmer.
You just said you want to make Cambria a much better community. Could you elaborate?
Yeah.
By the way, you made a lot of very
so-
positive and productive statements in your application. I appreciate that. So
Yeah.
I just want you to kind of restate that.
Yeah. As some have mentioned, I think there have been some issues in the past between the board and the community. I saw that one of your goals for this coming year is to, I think, be by the end of the first quarter, as I recall, was to formulate a new mission and vision statement. I have helped probably well over 100 to 150 organizations, public organizations, construct mission and vision statements, and I see that as a very positive step. And my hope is that vision statement would be something that sort of takes Cambria, if you will, to a new level, that it would be perhaps radically different, maybe insanely brilliant in terms of where we go as a community. I think we need to have some vision. I'm also concerned, and I think I put this in the application, Director Farmer, and that had to do with cleaning up this community, particularly on Lodge Hill. There are lots which have 20-foot stumps on them. There are logs of varying lengths, anywhere from 3 feet to 4 feet to 8 feet, which PG&E left behind. And I think it creates a very bad optic for Cambria. It's a bad aesthetic. And one of the previous applicants talked about all the people who come here, the thousands of people who come to Cambria as visitors. And for those who live here, what that optic messages to people is that we just don't care. And I think we need to care about the community and what it looks like. Because if it keeps looking the way it does, we may not have people coming here the way they used to. And that's not good for the economy. So I hope I've answered your question.
All right, Director Berenger? Oh, I do want to say, would you state your name again so the public can hear your name?
Yeah, Ronald Cristando.
Thank you.
Ronald Cristando. Where's my,
Director Berenger.
Yes, as you know, we're trying to continue some of the vision that Michael Thompson had, and I would like to know whether you would seek a regular coastal development permit for the sustainable water facility, and would you favor running the plant on an as-needed basis?
And you have about 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Yeah. Here, I mean, I've read the things on materials on the internet concerning that plant, and I think it started out as one thing in terms, and then it morphed into something else, and then now it's we can only use it when we're at a stage 3 or something, and if it's a stage 2, we can't. I don't understand all the ins and outs of it completely and totally, and I'm approaching this position with an open mind. And I'm not going to come in here and take a position that I'm not comfortable taking until I have more information.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cristando. Next up, Ms. Dean.
Good afternoon, staff.
First,
board.
I would like to say, before you begin, please, you're not an affirmative action applicant, are you? Because I notice you're the only woman that's applied.
Well, you know, I kind of applied at the last minute because I didn't see anywhere on the application that only men need apply, and that appeared to be what was happening.
Okay,
And
thank you. Let's get started
And
on
I
your
thought
statement.
I could help add a little balance and diversity to the board. Thank you. We bought our first home here in Cambria. Well, we bought our home here in Cambria in 1994. I was a part-time resident until about 4 years ago when we both sold our businesses and moved here full-time. I have been a self-employed, sole proprietor business owner for 35 years. I have had a lot of experience in dealing with bids, contracts, following budget restraints. I have been a president of a board of directors for 10 years for a property owners association. I realize it's not on the scale that this is that you're handling. It was a much smaller community. We did not have a staff to support us. The board of directors did everything ourselves. I've had experience with dealing with fish and wildlife, with the creeks that ran through our property, with culverts, with insurance and liabilities, dealing with the county and state regulatory agencies, disgruntled constituents. Believe me, on a board that represents 82 properties in a 1 square mile community, you get a lot more bashing than you folks have had here. I feel like that I am very open-minded. I'm open to listen to all opinions, and I like to do research to make sure I have all of the facts before I make decisions. Like I said, I feel like I can bring a little more balance to the board. One thing I would like to work on is a little bit more communication with the public. Director Farmer does a once-a-month breakfast meeting. President Rice has done that in the past, too. And I think that the members of the board, it would be helpful to be a little bit more accessible to the public on a one-to-one basis like that, so the people that don't feel like they can stand up before the public, before the board, have an opportunity to express their concerns and discuss them. As far as the water project goes, I have followed this project from the first day that it was brought up. I have done a lot of research on the background of the water situation in Cambria. I've spent time talking to the general manager, our engineer, asking questions. They have been more than available to me to make sure that I understand the whole situation. There have been members of the community who have helped me in researching documentation on all the past issues of this community. I feel like that we have come close to resolving the problem with the water, and that we need to start to deal with some of the other issues as well that affect this community, mainly infrastructure. I feel like we need to spend a little more time between the staff and the directors in coming up with a prioritized list of what the infrastructure needs of this community are and finding ways to fund them. I have contacts on. I can't quite see that. Is that a 2? Okay. I'm going to leave it at there and let you ask questions.
Director Behringer, Director Sanders. Director Farmer, any questions?
I feel like I'm the only one asking questions.
I'll have one after that.
Okay.
Up here where you say, why do you want to serve as a CCSD on the board, and you say work on lessening the divide within our community. How do you see that divide in our community, and how do you feel the district and the board could work along the lines to resolve, or at least better that situation?
I think some of the reason we have so much divide in this community is lack of communication and lack of understanding of what we are all trying to get across. I think that, in your goals, you mentioned something about a town hall meeting possibly at the end of a quarter. That hasn't happened. I think that if at least 3 or 4 times a year that we can take the questions and the concerns that the public has brought forward to the board that don't get answered, and have a town hall meeting for a question and answer period like that, so people understand where we're all coming from.
Can I ask a quick question? As you know, my number's in the book.
Yes.
And I've mentioned that many times. I haven't received a call from you or anybody, and it must just be me.
And you did, to your credit, you did have the front porch.
The front porch weekly meetings, but nobody's coming, so I apologize for that. But
and
it's still in the book.
I have emailed you, and I have emailed you. Yes, I have.
I appreciate that. And the question was, and I'm asking this on some people, would you agree with Michael Thompson's position that supported the rights of those on the water wait list?
Well, I have to, in full disclosure, say that I am on the water wait list. That may be an issue for some people, but I am trying to remove that waitlist position. And in the last couple of meetings, the board discussed the main thing I was concerned about in getting rid of the position, and that's the same ownership on both sides. Can you repeat the rest of the question again? I'm sorry.
Would you support the rights of those that are on the water wait list?
Yes, I would.
Thank you.
But may I expand upon that?
Very briefly, because we've got just a couple seconds.
Never mind.
All right, if we have further in-depth questions, we're
Right, I have a follow-up, and you'll understand why.
Okay, now?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dean. Which brings us to Mr. Caldecott. Welcome.
Thank you, Madam President, and board members and members of the public. It's nice to be back up here for a short time. Short time being the emphasis, because when I was asked if I would consider running, it was strictly for the remaining term. I've served 17 years on the board, and I might a nice even 18 would be just great. There's a lot of emphasis, or I should say a lot of work that has to be completed, and it's very important that that happens. I was unfortunately on the board when we had a full-blown desal plant in the works, and a change of the board scuttled it, basically, and that was a big disappointment to the district. We wouldn't even be talking about water if we'd put that plant in. We'd have it, and there'd never be the question, is it going to rain this year? Anyway, moving on, I think that the sustainable water system which you folks have come up with is an excellent idea. I wish I'd thought of it. But at least I got the Corps of Engineers here, along with Greg, and that's, I guess, was the lead in for that. It's interesting that the water project, one of the things it does is it fulfills lots of requirements that were made known. There was one early days of having a rubber bladder dam on San Simeon Creek to keep the water up until we needed it. Well, this plant basically does that, only it does it underground, which is a really good solution. And so I'm very pleased that that's where it is, and I would just love to see the regulations eased by giving us permission to do what we want to do and when we want to do it. Because only the water managers know when we need water, and it varies over time. I remember one time when Santa Rosa Creek looked like it was going to dry up because we were having a bad summer, and we asked the regulators, well, can we dry it up? Because there are going to be some species. They gave us a favor of not even talking to us, so it was just on our own dime. So anyway, I have had 17 years experience on the board. I think I could fill in for the 1 year without too much problem. Obviously, there'll be things I have to catch up on, but I would be delighted to do that. And any questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Caldecott. Questions? Director Behringer.
Well, a statement. First of all, thank you for even considering doing this. You know what it takes, I'm sure, and you've gone through a lot, and I appreciate it.
Yep.
And I was going to ask you whether you would run for the seat in 2018, but of course you've answered that question. And you've actually answered those other questions. Even though it'll be a little advantage to Mr. Fosdyke, I wanted to explain that, as you know, on the board, what you do is an item is brought up for consideration. Staff compiles the facts that are known. The board considers the staff report, the staff recommendations. Directors discuss the issue in open session. Take testimony from stakeholders and the public. And then we vote on the issue, and we vote yes or no. We don't equivocate. We don't add on and say, yes, but. It comes down to one question, and that's my comment here on Karen, why I'm looking for a yes-no answer, because it's a tough one. It's always been a tough one. And so, for your question, I suppose, would you seek a regular coastal development permit for the sustainable water facility, and would you favor running it on the plant on an as-needed basis?
Exactly as you've stated, I would, yes, indeed.
Thank you.
Seeing no other questions, did you want to make any other statements? You have about a minute left.
I don't think so. I think it's encouraging. You've got so many good candidates, and I would like
Brevity
to
is
think
wonderful.
that when the election comes, which is a hard job, I was elected 4 times. It's hard work, right, Glad? And so I hope that some will stick around and run in the election because we need good people on this board. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank you,
much.
Mr. Charlock. And I might add that one time, along with Director Sanders, you both ran unopposed.
That's true, yeah. Those are the good, well, you could say the good old days, but yeah. Thank you.
Democracy's messy, isn't it? All right, Mr. Fosdyke, please make sure you state your name so the public knows who you are.
Well, I may be your last, I may not. I saw when Mr. Walters came in. So my name is Bruce Fosdyke. Came to Cambria 2009. Hadn't really had any interest, was newly retired, and figured I would spend a year just kind of seeing what everything's all about when you're not working. So got involved in the North Coast Advisory Council and started that way. But my background is from San Diego. Came up to work for CAL FIRE. Am a retired training officer for them. And some of the things that I've been doing here currently is that I'm with the, I'm the current representative for Cambria for the County Fire Safe Council. I'm one of the founding members of the new current Fire Safe Focus Group that we have working now. As I mentioned formerly, I was with the North Coast Advisory Council. I was the chair for them for 2 years. I served almost 5 years as a member of council and/or an alternate. I also served a couple of times as a traffic chair for them. As I mentioned, retired CAL FIRE training officer. I'm through the fire department. I'm something that they don't get very often, which is a certified chief officer. That's something that you have to take an awful lot of training classes for. As a training officer, after I retired, I was involved in a couple of things, then asked to do some stuff for the state, which was cadre development for new training programs for not only for officers, but chief officers as well, which was kind of nice. Served as a team leader for the FEMA urban search and rescue teams, and an instructor for Texas A&M. I developed and worked with them as an instructor for incident management, for disaster planning, etc. Some of the examples of some of the projects I've had locally here was working with the Fire Safe Council and with the county on the tree mortality issue that we have here, and trying to simplify the process, which was fairly complicated, to just cut a tree down that was dead in your yard. I think we were very successful in that. One of the things that I worked closely with also with Dan Turner of the Fire Safe Council was the biomass plant that we presented here in earnest to try to not only use the biomass, the immense amount of biomass that we have, but also to help the sewer treatment plant by providing free electricity for them. So I understand that's still on the table. The grants were unsuccessful, but we will still pursue on. The Gateway Monument that you see that's not quite finished is one of the other things I worked with SLOCOG on through the NCAC. So we should have that completed here fairly soon. I saw a need in the Fire Safe Council and the focus group that people were not prepared. They weren't ready for a disaster. They weren't ready for whatever they'd do. They didn't quite know where to go. So I developed a class, and with some of the people from the focus group, we taught local neighborhood classes throughout Cambria and San Simeon, and was able to help people understand how to prepare themselves for a disaster and to know how to evacuate, when, et cetera, et cetera. I was successful in teaching about 230 people. And these are all neighborhood classes that are specifically set up for them. One thing you're going to ask is, what can I bring? For myself, I try very hard to see more than one side of an issue. It's too easy to get wrapped up in just what I want to do. It's not just about me. It's about the whole community. It's about what the community wants. I tend to think sometimes out of the box. I try to see an answer that might not come straight on. It might come from the side. Try to bring options to the table. Because of my background in the fire department, it's pretty easy to think that, I may understand fire department issues and water issues since they're part of this same system here. Worked very closely with Fiscalini Ranch, Forest Committee, Chamber of Commerce, our current county supervisor, Planning and Building, SLOCOG, Council of Governments, and Caltrans in some of these endeavors. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Fosdyke. Questions? Director Behringer.
Yes, you got a heads up on this one. A one-word answer, if you please.
Oh.
Do you agree with Michael Thompson's position that supported the issuing of intent to serve letters to those on the water wait list?
Yes.
Thank you.
Other questions? All right, I think that sounds like what we've got for right now. We have one more applicant. Jeff Walters, and let me just restate how we're doing this. You will have 6 minutes. Go ahead and come to the podium. Lectern. Welcome.
Thank you.
So you will have 6 minutes. You may use all 6 to introduce yourself, or if you would like at 3 minutes or at 2 minutes, we would do a Q&A. So if any of the directors have questions for you, they can ask them. It's up to you how you use your 6 minutes.
Sounds delightful. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. Yes, my name is Jeff Walters. I've, of course, run for the board before. Have a lot of very concerned issues with the community itself and things I'd like to get done. To that end, everybody talks about water. I've talked about water before. I'm going to talk about some things that are near and dear to my heart that I often don't get to talk about because it usually gets eclipsed by water. I have a project I'd like to introduce to the board, and if I have the opportunity to be a board member, I'd like to do more with it. I'm currently calling it, for lack of a better name, and I'm sure it could have a better name, the Tweed Watershed Reclamation Project. The reason why I'm calling it the Tweed Watershed Reclamation Project is because at the end of Tweed Avenue, there is a bog that forms every year. It actually used to be a lake in one of our little mountains here before there were houses put in and things like that. And of course, there was a river that ran through it and all of that. Thank you. And as that river ran through it, it goes down and it still forms a beautiful canyon. And an area that I think could be turned into a natural area, much as our boardwalk here on the beach was used to basically give access to nature for people locally and all of that. And I'd like to see more done with that. And I'd certainly like to talk to you guys more about it and whether or not I'm added to the board or not. So that's one of the things that was near and dear to my heart that I often never get to mention because it's something that I really like to see happen and would be worthwhile for also water in the area and wildlife. A big thing for me is, as far as locally, is our wilderness and our wildlife here, and also the access to the public for it. The other thing, along with the wildlife issue, is the issue of wildlife crossings over roads. Roads are one of the most dangerous, deleterious, and damaging things to wildlife in any environment. You could talk about tigers in Siberia. One of the main things that kills and destroys tiger populations is when they cross roads. For us, it happens to be coyotes, possums, skunks, squirrels, all that kind of stuff. Whether you like those animals or not, they're beautiful and they're worth keeping. And if they can do it in San Bernardino in Canada, why don't they do it here? They even do it in Santa Barbara County. They already have wildlife crossings there for many of their roads there. We have a wilderness area. I think it's kind of criminal in some respects that we don't do it here. And I'd like to do more with the county on that. Certainly this board could make recommendations in that regard. Like I said, whether I'm added to the board or not, these are things that I'd like to see addressed and things that I think are of concern to the community and certainly our wildlife. I just saw a raccoon, two full adult raccoons get nailed right up here on Highway 1. We definitely need animal crossings along that corner and that corridor. And particularly also as well, since it's not entirely in our community, but the Harmony Headlands area where there's a bend in the curve, there's a lot of carnage that occurs there. And I think there should be a project put in at that area as well. I'm also for a responsible build-out. We need revenue. I don't think walling Cambria off as a singular invisibly gated community is a good way to handle our community, and I think some people do, but I don't agree with that. I think that we can have a responsible build-out plan. I think that we can do a plan that deals with current lots without increasing our footprint and literally without increasing congestion or anything else that might occur with additional people within our community. I've been told that basically, economically, this community is basically absent about 2,000 more people, but we could absorb those people with our current footprint and with existing structures even, if worked with properly with real estate and other people. And I think the community itself could come together on that with and other environmental concerns that are here already. And we already did something like that. Rick Hawley started green space that way as a constructor, and Harry himself knows about that. Also, Mr. Fosdyke probably knows a little bit about how to get real estate people together with environmental people for their corridors when they had water issues down in San Diego. There was actually a NOVA program done on that on PBS a while ago. It can happen. I think it should happen. The other two things I'd like to mention is fire safe is not forest safe. I complained about that a while ago. The idea of clearing 30 feet from your house when your lot is less than 30 feet wide is insane. It's a recipe for removing the forest from our community. I do not like it. I'm not happy with it. I think it needs to be mitigated and dealt with. Water issues, I think you all know that I believe that atmospheric water is a worthwhile way to go. It can be done without doing any damage to either the sea or our local landmass, and needs to be looked at further. I will stay for any further questions, if I have enough time.
Yes, there's about 30 seconds. Any questions? All right. Thank you, Mr. Walters.
Thank you for your consideration.
Okay. I want to take public comment. I only have two cards. I only have two public comment cards, and then we'll have a discussion about how we're going to move forward following public comment. What I would like to say, I only have two slips. If you would like to speak, please fill out a slip and make sure you get it to Monique. I would really like anybody who's going to speak directly to any qualities you want to see in a new appointed director. Of course, I'm not going to tell you what you have to say or can't say, but that would be more helpful, I think, for the directors. And if you had any thoughts about the particular candidates, of course, you're welcome to do that.
So who's going to?
First up, we have Crosby Swartz, followed by Laura Swartz.
Good afternoon, Madam President, members of the board, and staff. First of all, I want to say that we're very pleased and surprised to see so many qualified candidates submit applications. And I'd like to thank them for doing that. Basically, they've been very eloquent in stating their qualifications. It's a hard act to follow. I'd just like to recommend that the Board of Directors keep in mind that it's not just a matter of appointing the person that you like, but the person that would be best suited to hear both sides of the various issues that the community has right now. I'm sure you'll do that, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Swartz. Laura Swartz. Welcome.
Thank you. Directors, I have to put my own. Directors, good afternoon. You'll see that Crosby and I kind of think alike since we live together, and husband and wife. But anyhow, I'm just going to read this because it's easier for me to do this. It's good afternoon to the directors and to the staff. And as you know, this is a very important day for the future of Cambria. I truly hope you will, and I thought it was going to be public comment before all of the candidates got to speak, so that's why this is a little bit backwards. But I was trying to say, I hope you truly will listen intently to our candidates. Premature personal preferences have been alluded to in statements recorded during a public meeting weeks ago. Preconceived appointment views do not make a vibrant democracy. At this point, maybe even a reclusion would be in order, since these were premature views were stated before. Okay. Anyhow, please make your decisions something that all of Cambrian can respect and will benefit the community. And that would be nice to have respectful decisions made where we all can be together. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Schwartz. Jason Anderson, and I don't have any other slips. Jason, welcome.
Good afternoon. My name's Jason Anderson. Most of you have seen me on the Land Use Committee for 3 years, 2 years on the NCAC. At that time point, I sat up there and listened to years of debate back about this water issue that we have. I was in construction for 40 years. I could look at a job site and tell you what's wrong with it and what's going wrong with what they're doing. I sat out there with my field glasses and observed the building of the desal plant and pond. Never seen a bigger joke in my life. There was no testing of things, the underground piping. I don't believe anybody did any pressure testing on it. They took the pond in itself when it was full of squirrel holes.
Mr. Anderson, the comments need to be directed to the board president, and is it regarding the candidate, the applicants that we have?
Yes,
I'm getting to
that
I'm
point.
sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to be sure we were on track with and on topic. Thank you.
Okay. And at that time point that I was listening to all this, we had a member of the NCAC that sat there and told to me that we had one agenda only, and that was his agenda that he wanted everybody to get onto. I sat there and for years and listened, and many emails were sent to this person stating that he could not run a NCAC and allow the members on that board to badmouth everybody on that board. So my opinion and my recommendation is for the one person that was the supervisor at the NCAC not be recommended for this job position. Thank you.
Mr. Anderson, who is that? That doesn't help. I don't think that is helpful for the board if we don't know who that person.
Excuse me?
I'm sorry, who is that?
That is Bruce Fonsdyke.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Did I see another comment card come in? Please. Mary Webb, welcome.
Thank you, Mary Webb, just speaking as a citizen. I can't not say something. Yeah, it's just who I am. So, we've gone through this a couple of different times where we watched a sort of the dog and pony show of supposedly interviewing candidates, but basically the board had already decided who they were going to replace themselves with, the clone candidates. I certainly hope that's not the case this time because it's not moving us forward. And, I think everybody can see that there's a lot of false facts and a lot of false choices and false narratives that were given by the candidates today. One that Cambria is either growing or dying. dying. It's not growing or dying. It's neither. We can have a balance with resources. It doesn't have to be one or the other. No one that I know that opposes this desal plant is for growing or dying. It's not pro-growth or anti-growth. That's another false narrative. We just don't need to be making decisions like that because that's not the case. The problem is growing with the resources, available resources that we have, and still maintaining the quality of life that we all want. And I don't hear anybody but maybe two people speaking to that. There is no limit to growth here, so that's another false narrative and a false fact. Cambria CSD does not control the growth. So there is no limit to the growth here. It doesn't have to be a Walmart, doesn't have to be a Taco Bell, but there is no limit to the growth here. There was never a vote in favor of desalination. The problem with most of the people in this community that are opposed to the project is that we never voted for desal. And in 2012, when things were going good, Mr. McKinnon, I was really hoping we were actually at a solution in 2012. What happened in 2013? They ignored everybody and went for opening the wait list. I have never heard before that to get someone appointed to this board, the litmus test had to be that you support the wait list. We are not, these ratepayers are here. Not, of course, a lot of wait list people live in town, but when was the qualification to be a CSD director that you support the wait list and not your own citizen ratepayers? I want to know why these people didn't run last year. A few did. I think you should take the person who ran last year and got the next most votes and put them in. We have already made our choice. That choice was Dwayne Lee. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Webb. I don't have any further public comment slips, and I did have a request for a break, but I'd like Mr. Carmel to address, because I don't want to have any conferring going on if we're going to take a little break. Can you please just address that? Maybe we can confer, but not all four of us. If we're going to take a break.
You can dialogue up there if that's what you're asking.
No, I'm asking if we take a break.
Oh, amongst yourselves? Obviously, no three of you can.
No three, but two of us could speak to each other.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make sure, and unless we agree to not speak to candidates, we can also do that, right?
That's correct.
And there's food.
Yeah, I don't have any problem. I just want to make sure that we're all following the same guidelines, because I want to make sure that we are being transparent. That's all. That's my main concern.
Yeah, I think it would, to clarify what your position might be, I would agree that we don't speak to candidates. Otherwise, that's what everybody be standing around and talking. So but I think there can't be a rule. But I think if the candidates understand that, we can move forward in that direction.
And I think we can come to a consensus. Is that all right?
Is that a consensus?
Director Farmer?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
General Manager Gruber.
We do have food also, so if
Yes,
anybody's hungry, we knew that it was getting close to dinner, so please eat the sandwiches, don't make me.
So I've had the request for a break. How long? 10 minutes? Okay, so 10 minutes. We will come back at about 4 to 5, and we'll bring it back to the board and discuss.
And there's sandwiches for everybody, there's cookies.
That's 10 minutes, isn't it?
Drinks. There's pickles with the sandwiches if you want. You want some olives with the sandwiches. Pickles.
Director Behringer, did you have?
Yes, Madam President. I just wanted to make a comment that I did, in fact, prejudice maybe, but certainly in public, on what I thought the process or the purpose of this appointment was. I feel that Michael Thompson had one more year left on his term. He was elected with a 6 out of 10 people voted for Michael, actually, and myself too. He and I ran on a very clear agenda, and it's just going to be a year before we need we need, somebody's going to take his place. I asked some yes and no questions and might get an opportunity to do more if in fact it happens. I must mention that if we had this many people that interested, it'll make next year's election really an interesting one. And everyone on the board, everyone, even the last speaker, Jeff Walters, when he's talking about the environment and issues on the roads that come in and out of town and air, water from air, those are all laudable. But we only have certain jurisdictions, and I've said many, many times, people look at the CCSD as if it's a government, when in fact we're a water and wastewater community. And also firefighting, which is extremely important. I won't get on, at a regular meeting, I'll get on the other issues that are there. But we have, 12 candidates? 12. And I think it would be a disservice for us to run all of them through another grilling or discussion. Okay. Based upon that, I would suggest that we choose maybe 3 people at the most. I don't have preconceived notions. I have read all the packet, as is all of our directors. We all listened to what they had to say, and I think that there's up to 3 candidates that if we could agree on to then proceed with, that would be my approach.
Okay, so I'm gonna, yes, Vice President Sanders.
Yeah, I just want to parrot part of what Director Behringer just alluded to. I have a preconceived notion about who should replace Director Thompson, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Director Thompson, as Director Behringer said, was elected with 60% of the vote, and I think it was an overwhelming mandate for the positions that he took when he was serving on this board. And I think it would be a disservice to those who voted for him to select anybody other than a person who shares at least the most important aspects of the philosophical approach Mike brought to this board. And that's what I am aiming for here.
Okay, and part of what I think going forward, what would be good is if we can, if each of the directors, let's have a discussion about the applicants we would like to ask further questions of, because I think it does a disservice to the community if we appoint somebody after 6 minutes, whether we have a preconceived idea about it or not. I think it's important to be more in-depth about it. In-depth with 12 people, there's 1 seat. So let's, we can start, if you want to just say the people that, I don't know.
Sure, I would
jot them down.
I'd be willing to.
Just the 3 that you, 3 or 4 that you would like to, that you would like to ask more questions. You can do up to 5.
Well, I'll let other people add to them if they want.
All right.
Without a doubt, Peter Chaldecott, if he was willing to serve, would be the ideal candidate in my mind, and I'll expand on that a little bit. I think that I think it was Elizabeth Bettenhausen, but someone at the last meeting said, "Hey, have a seat empty when we have an election next year," and I think that would be the fairest way of having not only somebody that has unassailable experience, knows the staff, knows all of the history. Hopefully, you watch TV over the last couple of years, but he's been around long enough and solid enough that I think his application is almost unassailable. Aaron Wharton fits the bill for the long term.
Okay.
Unfortunately, he wouldn't fit that opportunity for another candidate in full. And, well, I might leave that. I think Mark Harrier I like a lot, but and Bruce. So I'm just stick with those 2. Because if somebody wants to add on some very, very good candidates, I'm going to say Aaron and Peter Chaldecott.
Vice President Sanders.
Thank you. I have 5.
Okay.
And I hope that's not overly burdensome.
It is absolutely not.
Two of the applicants, I think, hit it out of the park because they really got to the core of the issues that drive most of the decisions that we make regarding infrastructure on this board, and it has to do with growth. How many people are we going to have living in this town? And how big does the infrastructure have to be in order to accommodate the number of people who are living here now and will live here in the future? I think that Mark Harrier hit it out of the park. I think Aaron Wharton hit it out of the park. And I know that Peter Chaldecott understands the issues because I served with him for a number of years. I'd like to throw Bruce Fosdyke into the mix because my view is the greatest threat to this town is fire, and it would be ideal, I think, to have somebody with fire service experience serving on this board. And finally, Robert Kelly. He's got a great deal of all-around experience with the CCSD and the community, and I think he would make a very good choice.
Thank you, Vice President Sanders. Director Farmer?
And having served on this board for less than a year, as opposed to the other members of the board, I'll probably take a slightly different approach, which may surprise some folks. I would say that the greatest threat to this district right now are the ongoing incompetent decision-making with regard to the finances of this community. And, the future quality of life in this town, obviously, first and foremost, has to do with the availability of water. But I think after that, it has to do with, as I said, good judgment, proper decision-making, and a sense of responsibility as we move forward as a district and a community with regard to how monies are being spent, as well as how the district is able to obtain funds. And for that reason, there are at least 2 people that I would want to see on the board. The first would be Dwayne Lee, due to his business background in various situations, one in a smaller town, one in a larger town. I've spoken with Dwayne. He and I ran together. I have a tremendous amount of respect for him as a person and how much he loves and cares about this community and the financial acumen that he would bring to the position. I would also seriously consider having Alan McKinnon return to the board. He did a tremendous job in serving the community while he was on the board. And I've spoken with him as well. He's seriously concerned about the financial decisions that have been made by this district and how to move forward in generating revenue for the district and for the well-being of this community. And those are the 2 people that I would certainly recommend. There would probably be more, but...
Is there anyone else that you would like to interview more in depth?
Well, oddly enough, the person who moved here 2 years ago, Mr. Pearson, I should also say that I know Karen Dean very well. She was very generous in being my campaign manager when I ran for office. And I have the highest regard and respect for Karen in every sense of the word. And if she were on the board, I'd be more than happy to see her here, as well as giving it a gender balance. But I would say that, and I don't know David Pearson that well. He only moved here 2 years ago. He didn't put down any references. But I just had a good feel for him. He was talking about in the information that he filled out, town halls, newsletters, better communication among the district and the citizenry. So I kind of got a good feel about him. But the main two people that I would seriously want on this board for the future of this community, one of them would be Dwayne Lee, and the other one would be Alan McKinnon. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Farmer. I have further questions that I would like to ask of Mark Harrier and of Alan McKinnon and of Dwayne Lee. Those are the three main folks that I would like to ask a few more questions of. So what we're looking at right now is Mark Harrier, Aaron, Peter, Dwayne, and Alan being in a round where we can kind of go more in depth. I only had one director on those. Do you want to ask him further?
Well, I don't know what.
With only one director.
Were you polling to see if candidates essentially got more than one vote here?
That's what I was looking at for narrowing down, but I don't have a problem if you would like to ask them questions. I don't want to obstruct that process at all. I'm trying to narrow it down to applicants that may.
Yeah, I'm
open.
You know me, I'm
Tell
always
me.
ready to move things on.
I know.
And if we can't agree on the top three or four, at least as a final
Right.
person, it's not going to help me at all to hear more from Dave Pearson. I mean, I know Dave, I like him, but I mean, somebody that just got here 2
Right,
years
well,
ago.
that's why these are the
wouldn't
ones
even
that
be
we
on
would
my
have. Right.
on my list.
Well, so
although I like him.
right. So what I have for people who there was somebody who's more than one director said that they would like to talk to further is Peter Chaldecott, Aaron Wharton,
Yes.
Mark Harrier, Dwayne Lee, and Alan McKinnon.
Did I say Bruce? If I didn't,
We can add him. I don't have a problem with it.
You didn't. You mentioned him, I think, in passing, but you didn't put him on your list.
I would put him on my list if I can get another director. If another
I have
director
no
isn't
problem with
interested.
that. That's
I've
fine.
mentioned.
Bruce.
Yeah,
I would add Bruce to.
All
I
right.
don't need to ask questions of him as much as I think they're a finalist.
That's absolutely fine with me.
So which candidates again, please?
So we're looking at Peter Chaldecott, and this is just in the order that they were.
Yeah.
Okay. Mark Harrier.
Uh-huh.
Aaron Wharton.
Uh-huh.
Bruce Fosdyke.
Uh-huh.
Dwayne Lee. Alan McKinnon.
Okay.
Did I forget somebody? I think I got it. I think that's the ones. Yeah.
That's 6.
6. Okay, this is where the brainiacs come into play here. Okay. Mhm.
Yeah.
All right, so we've narrowed down to 6, and there's some further questions that folks may want to have, and I would like to. How would you like to approach this? Absolutely, sir. Will you curtsy as you leave? Thank you to all of you for having the interest and passion to apply for the position, for heaven's sakes. It's not an easy job. Putting yourself out there is massively important. Thank you for doing that. I hope you get involved with committees and/or run next year. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Alan, maybe you could leave the Bible for God's guidance in making the proper decision.
I didn't trust anybody.
Yeah. We're going to have just the 6 candidates sitting at the table?
Yeah,
Is that right?
if you guys wouldn't mind scooching that way so that it's too far.
2, 4, 6. Oh.
Thank you. Just a little bit of moving around just so we can kind of more be face to face. Thank you. Now, I have a couple of questions that I would like to ask. We could just start with nominations, but I have a few questions that I'd like to ask a couple of the applicants just to get my feet under me with them.
Madam President, I would concur that if you have additional questions, anybody has additional questions,
Okay.
can ask them first, and then perhaps move into a voting round.
AGP, can we get the cordless mic? It's set up and everything, yes? Okay, great. So I think maybe, do we do an order of director? Do you want to do it in order of the candidate? How do you want to do it?
I think it just ought to be a kind of an open session where
All right.
Directors can ask questions of any applicant that they want.
Right, and I don't have any questions to start with.
Okay. Then why don't we start with Vice President Sanders? Did you have?
I was just formulating them in my head.
I see. Well,
I'll have some,
happy.
but-
I'm happy to begin. I want to speak a little bit to the kind of qualities that I'm looking for in terms of somebody to join this board. I think that there is a hole in the seat right now where Michael had been sitting, and some skills that he brought to the table, and I'm not necessarily looking to put in somebody that's identical to him, but I am looking for somebody who can fill the knowledge and skill gap that existed when Mike was here, kind of, which is financial acumen. I also want to have somebody that can be a team player, because this is a team sport, and has the time to invest in doing this. I know, because you all filled out the form and turned it in, that you are all passionate enough to put yourselves out there for it, so I'm not terribly concerned about that. This board has some challenges and some hard decisions to make coming forward. So one of which is getting that water purification plant permitted in a way that we are at least, very least, protected by drought. So I don't think, what I would like to ask each of you, and we can go in order straight down the line, starting with Peter. I think Peter actually already answered this one. There are challenges with the sustainable water facility. What do you see the board's role in going forward relating to that facility that was not cheap, but does provide some resilience in drought?
Jesse, I'm not too sure of your question. Were you questioning the permitting, which is, I guess, the outstanding requirement, right?
I think I want to know that you're not going, that we're not going to add somebody to the board who is going to cause an 100% halt to even looking at the options. There are things that need to be done, and we have to pay for it either way, so it's not an easy decision.
Yeah, well, I was there with the original desal plan.
Yeah.
In fact, I was the only member of the board voting for the plant. I was 4-1 against. And I understand what it's like to be in a minority in that situation. I'm fully in favor of the plant as envisaged by you folks here. And I think the additional part of having fresh water in the pond for the fire department is a really good idea. Very few firemen want to connect up to brine to put through their pumps. I thought it was a good idea, and I hope that can be pursued. And as far as I can see, the plant obviously is going to cost money, but it's much better than the alternative to have no water, that's for sure. Thank you.
All right.
It's been a very passionate issue. It started as one thing. It has morphed into others. It's been controversial. Mistakes were made. Deadlines were missed. We could go on and on and on and talk about problems. But the fact is, this town has managed to grab defeat from the jaws of victory before in terms of solving our water problem, and I think it would be a big mistake to go back now. So I am very adamant about we have to make this work. The investment is there. We're not going to tear it down. It makes no sense not to realize its potential. The fire risk here, we're sitting in a matchbox. And so anything that gives us more water, not just to turn on our tap, but to address what could be our most serious problem, I think is a good thing. So we need to be smart and smarter, and we need to really look at the budget. I ran a business for 22 years, so I understand budgets. That's really important, and when we can't be wasting money and pie in the sky stuff, but I support it.
I have never been in favor of not using the plant. We have bought it.
Yeah.
We have
Gotta
bought
swallow
it.
There we go.
We have bought it. We're paying for it. And, I think if we need to use it, it should be at a state that we could use it. In other words, there's some problems that have to be worked out. I think they're currently being worked out. And that is, what you do with the waste that the plant produces. That's a problem. I think the 2008 Master Water Plan is going to determine, the specifications as to, where we go with it. The GMO or the growth management ordinance by the county is going to determine the growth rate. And all those are really set by the county. As far as operating the plant in a situation other than an emergency basis, we will operate the plant. I think it comes to a matter of economics. And I think this is where I would like to think that I am very open-minded in sitting down with members of the board and working these problems out. In other words, we're always going to use the cheap water first. If we have to use the plant, it's going to be a matter of economics as to how much is it going to cost us to operate the plant, how much is it going to cost us to deal with the waste that the plant is producing. All those have to be factored in to determine what the ratepayers can afford. In other words, how much additional cost is the plant water going to add to the water supply for the community? In other words, how much are rates going to have to be adjusted? I don't know. I don't know if they will, or if so, how much. This is information that we have to take and weigh, and, you have to do that in an open-mindedness setting within the board. In other words, I think all problems can be worked out if we sit down and look at all the facts, get the expert testimonies of people that really know what they're talking about as far as the engineering part of it and so on. Yes, right now we have a broken plant out there. And the plant, in order to work, whether it's an emergency or whether to work, as whenever we want to do it, that has to be fixed. And I think working with the Regional Water Control Board, that's going to happen. And I would work diligently with every member on the board and consider ideas from each of them, and then determine what I think would be the best plan for the community of Cambria.
Thank you. Mr. Fosdyke? If you could be relatively brief, that would be great.
I'll try.
Not just one director, more than one. Requesting brief. Brevity is good.
You have a plant out there that has been put in place and has been used. I'm a type of person that does not tend to look backwards and see what was done. Rather than that, I tend to look forwards. What do I have? How to best use it for the community would be our primary mission. and I think that's yours as well. How do we best use this? How do we best serve the community with a piece of equipment that we already have? I think it would be a disservice to the community to say shut it off, or better yet, let it rot, sell it for salvage. That's just not going to be serving the community in any way, shape, or form. I believe this plant was innovative when it was put in, and there was some serious courage of the current board members and former board members that did this. The issues and the problems can be resolved. They just need some time and some effort to be able to do that. Take one problem at a time and move on.
Thank you. Mr. Wharton.
Well, I think that with the CCSD, their main product they sell is water. And as ratepayers, we pay a certain amount for that water. Can we use the SWF to expand our ratepayer base? Surely we could. Can we raise our connection fees to in line with where I believe Templeton is? It's from up to about $35,000 per connection. If we allow a little bit of a growth rate, we could easily raise $500,000 to $750,000 a year, possibly, without raising a single dime on a ratepayer basis. Could that money go to infrastructure? Could it go to the Stewart Street Shanks? Absolutely, I believe so. I think it could do that. So I think with the product that we're selling now is water, and if we have the SWF, then we can sell connection fees as well.
All right. Thank you. Mr. McKinnon.
What is we own $13 million plant out there that you can't use. The people approved the emergency water supply. And from that standpoint, that should be for the first goal. The big problem is that CDM Smith designed and built that system. They are responsible for the impasse that exists right now, which is the percolation pond being really a total failure. That is the hurdle that must be taken care of. There is an important part that we must realize, and I mentioned this in my introduction. Mark brought it up as the elephant in the room on the wait list. I bring it up, it's the elephant in the room with the SWF. And I think an open committee where we bring in the naysayers and the ones that are proposing the expansion of the wait list and so on and so forth together and make compromises that allow an effective use of that $13 million plant. The thought was, how do we pay for this thing? Well, the only way you can pay for it is to make it run. To make it run, we have to release a certain number of connections, and we talked about this in 2011. We had a stimulus plan that we talked about, and the objective was to release a certain number, 4 or 5 connections each year, and in doing so, we built up a kitty that allow us to eventually purchase a desal plant. We have the bones of a good plant out there. Ideally, it should be an outflow of brine, and brine is the problem, the only problem that has to be conquered, and that brine is taken care of in Morro Bay, Carlsbad, everywhere, by going back out into the ocean. We don't have that ability at this point, but it is the nub, it is the problem, it is the hurdle that can really bring life into this community. And the other part, I believe strongly, that if we offer the citizens of this community soft water, beautiful soft water, get rid of all your equipment in your garage and $40, $50 a month that you pay in soft water, there's mechanisms that system can pay for itself. It's going to be a difficult time, but it can be done.
So I just have 2 questions, and these are yes and no. So we'll start with Alan, and just yes or no, I don't need elaboration necessarily. And one is about the Water Master Plan. If you're not familiar with it, that's all right. The Water Master Plan was produced over a period of years and culminated in approval of the program EIR in 2008. So that's the first thing that's really the main thing you need to know, in my estimation, about the Water Master Plan to answer the question. And the other thing is the difference between a standing committee and an ad hoc committee. A standing committee requires some more staff time. The agendas are published to the public under the same kind of rules that a regular meeting is, and can also include not just board members, but members of the community. So, obviously, the way the question is posed, I've tipped my hand of what I think we should be doing. But the questions are, would you support the work that would have to go into updating the Water Master Plan, which describes how we're going to go forward in this community? And would you be supportive of having standing committees for things like water, wastewater, fire, the way that other communities often do? So, Water Master Plan update.
Absolutely.
Standing committees.
Standing committee, absolutely.
Thank you.
Specifically for the SWF.
Thank you.
2-part question? Yes and yes.
Thank you. Bruce?
Yes, yes.
Water Master Plan and standing committees.
Yes, I'd be in favor of both.
Thank you.
Yes, yes.
Yes, yes.
All right. That was simple. Director Berenger?
One quick question for all of you. We have 2 standing committees, PROS and the Build-Out Reduction Program. Build-Out Reduction Program is now meeting weekly. They've been meeting for the past 8 weeks. And PROS, it works monthly, standing committee. Could I have a raise of hands of those that have attended any of those in the last 2 months? Bruce. Thank you.
All right. Director, Vice President Sanders.
Well, speaking of the Build-Out Reduction Committee, I'd like to hear from each of the applicants whether or not they support the work of the Build-Out Reduction Committee.
Maybe it would be good to say what the work of the Build-Out Reduction Committee is.
If they don't know that,
Okay.
then I...
Fair. Let's start with Mr. Chaldecott. Do you support?
I need clarification.
Sure.
Do you support the work of the Build-Out Reduction Program?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It's saved a lot of angry people for taking us to court.
Interesting.
Thank you.
I think it's been very successful, and I think if there's ways to even make it better, I'd be interested in that. Michael, I just want to say I envy you being able to raise your kids in this town. I wasn't able to do that, but I did conceive both of them here.
Mr. Lee?
Yes, I think that we would have to have something in effect like the Build-Out Reduction Committee with as many lots as we have, without a permit, even those that we have that are not on the wait list. So I think they do a very important job, and we need to continue that. And maybe, it can be refined as well. Everything can be made to work better.
Thank you. Mr. Fosdyke?
On the surface, the Build-Out Reduction Committee, you would think it would be very simple, but it has been a very complicated and drawn-out process. There are a lot of fine points to go through, and I know that they've been very good at looking at
as much of everything that they can to make the best recommendations that they have. And yes, I'd be in support.
Thank you. Aaron? Mr. Ward?
Yes, I'm in support of the build-out reduction plan. I think it's an innovative program, fairly successful here in town, and hopefully that success can continue forward and help the communities with their empty lots or with people at the bottom of the wait list.
Thank you. Mr. McKinney?
Ditto.
Good, ditto. That's good. Yes, Director Farmer.
Yeah, I just pressed I got my green light on here. I just like to address two questions to all of the members, all of the applicants that remain. How many connections, how many water meters per year would you favor being issued in the future, and give me a time frame as well? And where would you feel would be the best application of the funds that we would gain from these water meters? Thank you.
Good question, yeah.
Mr. McKinnon?
That's a good question. I think it is a viable mechanism to pay off at least a portion of the system, the water system, the water project. So I would say in the neighborhood of 5 to perhaps 10 at the outside. But I think more importantly that we look at it in another way, that we do have a tourist economy in Cambria, but on balance, a small build out of new homes actually produces a great many other functions. Drugstore, another hardware store, and maybe another restaurant, but certainly it is a viable manufacturing operation that a lot of our folks could be employed by. So I'm for that ballpark, but I think somewhere in that neighborhood.
5 to 10 is what? Okay.
Is that it?
Is that what you said, 5 to 10?
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Wharton?
Based on a percentage based on the number of connections we currently have, which is about 3,900. 1% would be about up to 40. Based on what we don't, as a town, we don't base our own growth rate. It's based on what the county will allow us. If we could go, 10, 20 homes, that'll give us a nice amount of general use funds that we could put towards infrastructure, like I said earlier. Maybe if we release 30 or 40 meters in the first few years and suddenly the Stewart Street tanks are repaired and the pipes are being retrofitted, maybe we put in the purple recycle pipes in that have been talked about. But I feel, if we also examine our connection fee rates too as well, I think those go hand in hand as well.
Thank you, Mr. Fosdyke. I just want to remind everybody, brevity.
I always get that.
It wasn't meant to, it's not intentional. It's totally not intentional. You're midway through the line.
I understand. I'm going to answer the second part of the question first. Where I would want to see that would be infrastructure. That's mainly what connection fees are supposed to be about, is buying into the infrastructure of the community. It's not enhancing the general fund. It's not paying for salaries. It's for buy-in for the current infrastructure that we have right now, and that we use that money to improve it. To put a number on connections for myself is a little premature. I believe that you have to look at an awful lot of other information, what water we have available for the long term. Once you've made that connection, you can't unmake it. And so you can't come back 20 years from now and say, I really wish we hadn't put out 50 connections or 100 connections. So it's a very careful decision. I'm sorry, I won't be able to give you a specific number. I would have to look at an awful lot more information to be able to actually give you the answer that I think you might be looking for.
Mr. Lee?
I think we have to look at this question as to how fast we can grow within our resources. In other words, resources do not end with just the water supply. Resources have to do with roads. They have to do with, a lot of other things as far as the wastewater treatment plant has to be looked at. So growth within our resources, this is going to be handled mostly by the county. In other words, the county sets the growth according to the resources that they think that we can supply. So as to the use of the money when we do start adding new homes to the community, I think that needs to go only to infrastructure, because by getting a water meter or a connection, that puts you in use of the facilities, and that should go to strengthening that and updating it and replacing what's worn out and so on. Until we get to that, I still think we need to make that a priority. In other words, we've got a lot of infrastructure problems right now that need to be addressed. I remember the general manager's PowerPoint a few years ago, and it was scary. So a number is very, very difficult to put on that. I would say the number would be determined as to the resources that we have available.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Mr. Hurrier?
I pretty much agree with everyone. It's sort of like the golden egg. If we go with 1% growth and we get 40 a year, then we build it all out in 15 years, and then where are we going to get our income? I think infrastructure obviously is what it has to go to. And I don't know if the budget considers contingency as part, all of these structures and infrastructure we have certain lifespans. You can predict that lifespan. You can budget for the replacement of that lifespan. And I don't know if that all has been done. I assume it has. But I would do the minimum required in order to meet those obligations. I would want the infrastructure, though, that's crucial, because we're wasting a lot of water. A number, I think we would really, as a community, feel 40 houses being built a year. And so I'm not necessarily, and also we burn through our golden egg too fast. I think if we had some restrictions put on in terms, maybe make them a little stricter than they are out in the county as far as when you can start building and when you have to finish. I'm sure the contractors will be happy enough with the extra work to make that progress go a little bit slower, and the homeowners that have been waiting 20 years might not mind another 2 months in their construction cycle. So I would want to do it so that the actual build-outs would be as least impact to the community as we can. My gut says 10 to 25.
Thank you, Mr. Chazzacott.
Yes, I was just thinking we have roughly 600 on the wait list.
Roughly.
We closed the wait list 10 to 15, 20 years ago.
91.
Yeah, they must be very long-lived individuals. Because at 20, if you release 20 a year, that's 30 years, I think, before the last man gets to build his house. It's a huge number, and it's very hard. You can see anyone seeing any value in that particular investment. Needless to say, we do need the investment of people getting the permits. I remember one time, quite close to here, there was a leak, and I got to see the open hole. I was just amazed at the patchwork that went on to get that pipe fixed. And that must be just one of many. So it's definitely there, and it has to be done. My own sort of gut feeling, it would be 20 years, assuming that we have our water supplies ready to go. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Barringer? I had one more question. Do you have a question?
If you have a question, I don't have a question.
Okay, so this is going to be an interesting one. It's easy to say that you support something that one of the directors up here says that they would like to see supported on the board. What that the district is doing right now, what would you not support or actually oppose that the district is currently undertaking? And feel free to be argumentative, because part of what happens is we have to have discussions, and I don't want somebody that thinks just like me or just like anybody else on the board. It's good.
Well, I think the thing I know least about is the possibility of purchasing a new building. And there's precedent for that. We were in an old library when I came to town, so there's precedent for that. But you said about arguing. I find that once the facts are out and we haven't argued about it, we can come to a conclusion. That's always been my experience, that if I get enough facts, I can make a decision which most people can support because they have all the facts. That's just the one I have to find out about. I'd like to know what the mean level of the floods were last time, and all kinds of things. There's a beautiful building there, and I used to enjoy going to as a library. I think the lighting in there is superb, and we'll wait and see. Thank you.
I think that our number one problem, and it's not even close now, I think is fire danger. And I don't know that the board is doing enough to address that problem. All water meters, all of that, all build-outs become moot if the town burns down, and it has burnt down in the past. So we're in a forest that is, a lot of it is dead, and we have beetles, so we can't even truck out the dead wood very efficiently. It's a huge problem, and I don't know that enough focus or resources are being spent to deal with that.
So program or something the district does that you would oppose or that you would not necessarily support?
Well, of course, we would like to have had more information concerning the recent purchase of the library building. I asked that at the board meeting whenever it came up for a vote. I'd say, let's put this off for a month or two so we can hear all sides and the issues, because we hadn't heard all the issues. You can't make a decision unless you know all of the facts. It just seems to me like that we should be putting money in the part of the infrastructure that's failing rather than buying new infrastructure right now whenever we've got a facility that we're renting. And believe me, I'm not in favor of paying rent. So eventually, I think that owning your own building is the best thing. I just think that the timing was off a little bit. Of course, I know that the building might not be there if the timing was better, but that's what comes right off the top of my head.
Thank you. Mr. Fosdike.
I'm going to say tough question, and I'll be concise.
Just be candid.
I tend to agree to a point on the other candidates about a building. It was very quick, but there's information there that I'm not aware of. The best thing you can have, and I'm going to end up echoing Mr. Lee here, is that you want to have a piece of the district. You want to be a member of the district, and to do that, you have to own a piece of it. Now, we've had property here for sewage treatment, et cetera, but it's nice to have your own place that you can say, this is what we want to do with it, and we can make a change to it rather than having to ask Mother May I. With that said, I think sometimes the district gets a little bit in the weeds with a lot of the outside interests that have come about, because the district is the largest governmental agency here. You're the water, you're the fire, you're the things, and I know that sometimes some of the things came to you like trash pickup, trash cans, and you've got your part of the pros where you're part of the Fiscalini Ranch and the parks and all these other things. Sometimes I think they tend to distract from sometimes the main mission and goals. I don't say that they're a bad thing, because somebody has to do it, and that's one of the reasons I went to pros, was I was talking about medians. So again, we had an issue, but the only thing we could look at was to work on was the medians. And But I think that sometimes the focus is lost, and I'd like to see it brought right back to some of the larger issues and maintained there for a while.
Thank you. Mr. Wharton?
I think communication is probably the biggest complaint that I would see. And that echoes back to what the purchase of the library building. I feel a lot of that could have been quelled if there was a little bit of information out front, gather, maybe there's not some information that we weren't privy to, we couldn't be privy to. And, you know, like somebody told me, well, why are you telling me this now? It's because I'm telling you now. Maybe it's a situation like that. My employees, they ask me that occasionally, and I'll just throw back that answer to them. So I think communication would be something that...
You said your kids or your employees?
Employees. I tried that on my kids tonight. But I think communication, it can probably lessen some of the uproar in town.
Thank you, Mr. McKinnon.
Someone said it would be $40 million to do a whole new piping of our community. As an engineer, no matter what, brand new or old, the priority has to be on infrastructure. I don't see any infrastructure projects in your budget. That, to me, is the highest priority, almost above anything else. So from that standpoint, there's some other objections, but that's my top one.
Thank you all very much. Director Behringer.
Thank you all very much. I really appreciate your input. And as everyone knows, that any money that comes in for connection fees or whatever must go to infrastructure. And I agree with most people, and you've heard me say before, I think infrastructure is a high priority. However, in listening to in reading everybody's background, listening to everybody's pitch, listening to the answers of the question, it still remains very clear to me that the best candidate for this community to fill this position for the next year is Peter Chaldecott, and I nominate Peter Chaldecott to take the position.
Is there a second?
Of the six remaining applicants, four of them stand out to me. I can live with either one of the four, or either one, that's not correct, any of the four. And I'm a short timer. There's going to be another session like this in a couple of months after I'm gone.
Oh, we're not going to replace you, just an empty seat.
Peter Chaldecott is one of the four, so I'll second the motion.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Would you like to speak to your motion further?
Yes. There's a lot of, by the way, I wouldn't, before we're all done, I would like to understand what Director Sanders' other people are, but it's almost without question that someone that has been here for as long as they have, there's a lot of great people here, and sometimes I'd wipe somebody out because they've only been here for 2 years or something. To have been here before, during, and after the decision is key. There's some people that fit that bill, including, of course, Alan McKinnon. There's other people that foot the bill, but not quite where Peter Chaldecott is. And one thing that I'm sorry for the bias, and in fact, I don't think Peter's going to actually fit exactly what Michael Thompson's position is. I know Peter, and he's going to do what is going to be best. So that's not a reservation, but it's a tribute to his character. Not only is the experience there, but I think there's a position within the community that would like to see someone who has publicly stated that they're not going to run in November. Someone that replaces another director that might leave, may not have to make that commitment, but I think it's due to the community. It's good for the community to have an opportunity not to have an incumbent at least one incumbent not running next time. I think that's the trump card that makes me.
Are you running next time?
No. Well, I didn't say. It's a yes or no question, and I
Fair.
abstain.
Fair.
Fair.
Yes, no, abstain.
There
Got
might be all 3 seats available. We don't know, but at least though there's a hope for one. And I know the character. I know he has the experience. I think it's irrefutable. Now, I think also as part of this discussion, so that we get the discussion out, I think Aaron Wharton will be here again to take another seat. And but all things balanced, I continue the nomination for Peter Chaldecott, and I would hope for a unanimous vote.
Would you like to speak to your second?
I've seconded the motion, but I would certainly hope that the others that are remaining here among the 6 would also apply again after I'm gone and seek to fill my seat.
Apparently youth is not on your side, Mr. Wharton. You're coming back. Would you like any further discussion? Let's have a roll call vote, please. The
Director
motion.
Berenger?
Aye.
Vice President Sanders?
Aye.
Director Farmer?
No.
President Rice?
No. Mr. Carmel?
Just keep plodding along until there's 3 votes.
So we would make another nomination.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Well,
Director Farmer?
I know some of the applicants better than I do others. And in knowing them, but mostly in reading their applications, listening to their answers, listening to the comments that they've made. To me, we're trying to find a person who, I guess we could say, is someone that would be agreeable to all 4 of us here on the board. And to me, that would be somebody who is very conscientious with regard to the financial challenges that face the board, the district, and this community. And someone who has, like I say, has a financial background, a business background. And someone who is very thoughtful and well-balanced in the way they approach an issue. Someone who is not against, let's say, more building taking place in this town, but at the same time sees the main issue as being how can we develop the infrastructure along with that process of building so it goes hand in hand and we don't already affect a really challenged infrastructure that we have. So I wish to nominate Dwayne Lee for the position.
I would second. Would you like to speak to your motion? Further to your motion?
Oh, okay, here.
You don't have to, I just checking.
Oh, you mean say more about the applicant?
Yes.
I just appreciate Dwayne's background in the sense that one of the things that he brought up with me was, when he owned a business, and of course I would also say this, he was involved with the Chamber of Commerce and other agencies, other organizations in the community that he lived in before. So he has an appeal to both the business community. He was president of the Chamber of Commerce. He has appeal to the business community as well as to the residents who might have a different approach. And also, I know in talking with him, he was always concerned about the well-being of his employees. When things were a little bit difficult financially, he was always concerned about were they going to be able to survive. So Dwayne's just a really nice guy, and I feel the community would be well served with him being on the board.
Okay. And my thinking and my second is that he's not just a nice guy, but he has a sense of integrity, and I think that he's a person who is quite able when it comes to matching the brain power of the folks that are already up here. His intelligence, to me, I had experience during the last campaign, and I think it says something that he was not third, not fourth, but he was right behind there, and that says that there's a lot of people in the community who know who he is. They can contact him, so it makes it easier for people to approach him because he's kind of an already known, and we know that he has a base of support and part of pulling things together. I think that's one of the important things. I also know that his financial chops are pretty darn good because when we were looking at the budget, I think it was the mid-year budget or something or other, I took it over and said, can you look at this and tell me if I'm seeing the right thing? And he was very helpful when it came down to the finances and actually looking at our budget. So it's not just his business experience in that. So that's the biggest hole I see, other than the experience with fire. And we do have another spot to be filling in a month and a half, but I think this is the right direction to go right now. Length of time in the community is less important to me than the amount of passion and dedication, commitment to doing the job. And I think the fact that he applied, even though there were not everybody who ran last year applied. So I think that says something too.
If I could add one more thing. I remember when this is back during the process of putting your name in to actually run to be a director. And on more than one occasion, I was talking with Dwayne, insisting that he run because he would be such a great candidate. And true to Dwayne's nature, he would just kind of go back and forth and back and forth. And, he was saying, look, I was in business for so many years, and I've retired, and I've come to this town, and, I don't mind working with the various, the various groups that he's involved with. But he said, a 4-year commitment, I don't know if I want to do that. I'm comfortable retiring. But the more we talked and the more I made him realize, his deep affection for this community needed to be translated into something where he could really make a difference. And he finally realized, that's the direction I need to go in. And he ran. He did run for the office. He didn't get elected, and he's back here again applying. And I think that it says something about the character of Dwayne. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's have a roll call vote unless there's further discussion. Okay.
Director Farmer?
Yes.
President Rice?
Yes.
Vice President Sanders?
No.
Director Berenger?
No.
All right.
Madam President, I'd like to make a...
Whoever's phone is ringing, if you put it on silent, please. Thank you.
I'd like to...
Director Berenger.
I'd like to make a nomination, and it is Peter Chaldecott. Peter Chaldecott won. He won a midterm election unopposed. He's been in the position for 17 years. The experience is unassailable. Unassailable.
Wasn't he already?
He was. And I would like, during the discussion, for someone to explain to me where Peter Chaldecott is unfit to take the position. Do I have a second?
Are you serious, man?
I am serious.
This isn't about somebody. Wait a minute. This isn't about somebody being unfit. It's about the person that we feel is most qualified.
Right, and I believe...
that's a totally different... Come on, Jim,
who is more qualified than Mr. Chaldecott?
This is an important decision. And if we're all worked up, we're not going to get a good decision made. So
I'm going to second the motion because this happened once before. When I was on the board the first time, there was a seat that was vacated. I believe it was Don Villeneuve's seat. And Merle Clift applied. I made the motion to appoint Merle Clift. It may have died for a lack of a second, or there weren't a sufficient number of votes to select him. There was some additional discussion. I made the motion for Merle Clift a second time. There was a second. Merle was selected, and Merle turned out to be one of the best board members this district has ever had, in my opinion. So I'm seconding the motion for, the motion for Peter Chaldicott.
I just want to remind folks who are here, I know this is exciting, but let's please show respect to the board members and to the applicants, please. I don't want to pull this out again. Further discussion? All right.
I just
Harry?
just want to say,
Director Farmer?
yeah, just to kind of follow up on what you just said. If somebody had said, well, how would you describe this process, Harry? I don't know if exciting would have been the word that I would have initially come up with, but you just said it. You just said it.
I'm an English major. I have the vocab. Let's have a roll call vote, please.
Director Berenger?
Aye.
Vice President Sanders?
Aye.
Director Farmer?
No.
President Rice?
No. I move that we appoint Alan McKinnon to the seat. Is there a second?
Oh, I'll second that, sure. Thank you.
Moved and seconded, and I would like to speak to the fact that Alan McKinnon may have spent 4 years on the board and not 17, but it was more recent, and he has a background. I'll admit straight up, I know him better. For one thing, I spoke to him when he was not going to run in 2012 before I put my name in the ring to run, and I'm essentially sitting in his seat. And so that's my disclaimer to begin with. I think he's a very smart man, and I think that he brings a passion to the table that could be used. He also has been staying informed over the last several years, and as much as having the experience on the board. When Peter was on the board, it was longer ago. He also, along with Dwayne, has a strong sense of financial smartness, if I can use that word as an English major, Chico State. I think it's important to have somebody that can help us get back to where we need to be when it comes to our financial standing relating to the tax and the rates. And I think he has a good understanding of those issues. The fact that he doesn't want to rip out the project, that we need to go forward with it, and the fact that he understands that there's a lot of work that needs to be done. I would hope that we would get support from someone to my right who served with him. But we will see. Would you like to speak to your second, Harry?
I appreciate the fact that Alan McKinnon, I remember when I ran back in 2010, and Alan McKinnon and Frank D'Amico were on the board at that time. They weren't running. Jim and Mike were running against myself and Valerie Benz. And one of the things that Alan McKinnon and Frank D'Amico said the same thing. And they were in favor of the desal project at that time. But they said they wouldn't move forward, they wouldn't support the project as it was because they didn't know where the money was coming from and they didn't know how it would be spent. And you had to admire someone who was in favor of a project and yet still was deeply concerned about the financial challenge and that was involved with that project. So I know he's deeply concerned about the finances, of this community moving forward, the money that's available to the district. And I really admire the fact that Alan served on the board, and he's got a few years on me. And he could just as easily, just like Peter, say, hey, I'm just going to enjoy the rest of my retirement. And he's coming out of retirement because he's very concerned about the issues regarding this district with regard to the future of this community. And he's just passionate about it. And I know that he would be a tremendous addition to this board, returning to the board and making, really great decisions as we move forward in this very challenging time. Thank you.
I'd like to additionally point out he did serve on the board with Michael, didn't you?
Which one?
With Michael Thompson, you were on the board at the same time?
Absolutely.
Which could argue for the argument you were making relating to Mr. Chaldecott for the nomination. Is there further discussion? All right, a roll call vote, please.
President Rice?
Yes?
Director Farmer?
Yes.
Director Berenger?
No.
Vice President Sanders?
No.
Madam President,
Director Berenger?
I would like to nominate Mr. Chaldecott, but for sake of brevity.
Hey, can we take this process seriously?
I am taking this process seriously,
I don't
Mr.
think so.
I think everybody needs to simmer down just a little bit. It's a very stressful situation here.
I think that
We want the right person.
there is the clear second choice that I would have had, and I don't know what Mr. Sanders thinks as a top candidate. But it's very clear that Aaron Wharton is the future of this community. He's spoken very well. He has an investment in the community. And I'm convinced that if this were to be Mr. Sanders' seat, that he would be taking it. I'm sure, I feel strongly that if he were to run, he would run successfully. One of the biggest reasons I was trying to get Chaldecott to serve again is to give the community an opportunity of not having an incumbent that might wind up prejudicing the electorate. At the several requests from people in the community, didn't want that to happen. But however, I do know that Aaron would probably run, and I believe he would run successfully, and I nominate Aaron.
Is there a second?
Aaron is on my short list, along with two others besides Mr. Chaldecott, so I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Would you like to speak to your motion further? You're not required to, I just want to know.
Well, for all the right reasons, and I'm not going to go back to Mike's seat. That's gone. But I was trying to very clearly trying to give the community something else to consider. We all know, or actually from the testimony, that he is a highly qualified candidate. Your question of whether he would have the time to do it, you found a way to do it, and I think that he would be able to find a way to contribute. I think he also comes with a little less, you want to say baggage. He comes with less formal statements on one direction or another, and I think that that's refreshing. So I highly nominate Aaron.
Would you like to speak to your second?
No, I think Jim's synthesized it very well.
I think we're ready. Harry, Director Farmer, did you have anything? Thank you. Let's have a roll call vote, please.
Director Berenger?
Aye.
Vice President Sanders?
Aye.
Director Farmer?
No.
President Rice?
No. We need another motion, please.
I'm not shy of making a motion.
Thank you.
Obviously not.
I would nominate Bruce Fosdyke to fill the position. There's a lot of good reasons for it. He's involved. He's been with the NCAC. What he's done for the Fire Focus Group is phenomenal. I think he's throwing his hat in the ring for something like that. I think, Director Rice, you've seen his activity on the NCAC, etc. And my nomination is for Bruce Fosdick.
Second the motion.
Moved and seconded. Would you like to speak to your second?
No, again, I think Director Beringer summarized Bruce's qualifications very well. I think Bruce spoke eloquently about his approach to this job, and I think he's highly qualified, and he's on my short list.
He definitely cornered the market on references, that's for sure, with former supervisors and current supervisor as his references. I have had experience with Bruce when he was on the NCAC and I was representing our board to that group. I can't support him joining the board unless there's a vote of the people that want him here. For me, that's my personal feeling on it. Do you want to speak further to your motion?
No. No, I support Bruce in this position.
I think he's great doing I've talked to him about fire. He's super passionate about it. I hope we have a standing committee. I want him to stay involved in the fire things. I think it's really important to have experts that are retired firefighters because they know what they're talking about. I mean, he clarified some things that I didn't understand when I had a conversation with him last year when I was running and going door to door. So it's not that I don't think that he's an important asset to the community. That's not where I am. I don't think he should be on this board unless he's elected. Let's have a roll call vote, please.
I wonder what yours is going to be.
Director Berenger?
Aye.
Vice President Sanders?
Aye.
Director Farmer?
No.
President Rice?
No.
Could I suggest that
Yes.
Director Sanders make the next motion?
I think you're star-crossed or something.
I think we only have one left, or it's going to go to the board.
Well, No. I think there are 4 equally qualified candidates, so I would nominate Mark Harrier for the position. As I said before, I think Mark hit it out of the park when he spoke to us initially, despite what a lot of people who troop up to the microphone have to say. I think it is all about growth and how we manage it. And I really liked his metaphor. It's either a weed or a sequoia. And I think that was very appropriate. That is the crux of the biggest decision that this board is going to have to make within the next 18 months or so. So for that reason, I'm nominating Mark Harrier.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, seconded.
And I think that this is our opportunity, and perhaps our only opportunity, to select someone today.
A point well made. I tend to disagree with the assessment that the issue over the next few years is going to be about growth management. We don't control growth. It's about resource management. It's about managing the resources that we are responsible for, which is water, wastewater, fire protection services, and making sure that we are in line with what the county expects in terms of what they're going to do relating to our growth. Growth is not something that the CCSD manages, period. It's about managing our resources we have better with the people that we have here, and managing our resources better so that we know what our resources even are. I mean, we shouldn't have to wait to get a list of properties that might be available. It just isn't that hard. So That one dies for a second. Is there an?
No,
he's seconded.
I seconded. And
Speaking to the motion, I couldn't disagree more. I mean, if you want proof about who controls growth around here, you look no further than the Water Code 350 moratorium. There is no growth because of the CCSD. And this board is going to be faced with the prospect of lifting the moratorium.
Agreed.
That will induce growth, number one. Number two, in terms of resource management, sure, the county can set the growth rate, but the CCSD determines how many intent to serve letters are issued. And that is a growth control measure, like it or not. And when the district does issue intent to serve letters, hopefully the district balances resources against growth. That's what it's all about. So when it comes to growth, the buck stops right here.
I'm just supporting the second. I'm not getting argumentative. And I think Mark Harrier did speak well toward all of the issues. I had no problem with Mr. Harrier. My second is a sincere one, and it might be my last.
Director Farmer? Vice President Sanders.
Let me add to that. I think it's, quite frankly, I think it's irresponsible to just throw up your arms and say the county controls growth. That's a complete abdication of this board's responsibilities. The county does set the growth rate, as I said before, but why do we have a build-out reduction program? We have a build-out reduction program because we want to control growth.
And this is a fantastic discussion. I don't think it gets us closer to having a new
Well, I think the
director
record needs to
seated.
be set straight.
I think that's important too. Thank you. I nominate Alan McKinnon.
Ma'am, there's a first and a second on the table. And I think you know what the next step
Thank you
will
for
be.
bringing that to my attention. I'm a little bit brain weary at the moment. It was not intentional, and I apologize to Mr. Hurria. That was not an intentional
I would
at all.
appreciate during a discussion if you could explain what your reservations would be about Mr. Harrier's nomination.
I didn't hear reservations about the other candidates. And if you want to hear about this specific, it's not, my reservations surround, we need somebody, my highest priorities are somebody that is strong and can help us figure out our financial issues, because we have lots of them.
And Mr. Harrier can?
I'm not saying he can't.
Okay.
That's not what I'm saying. In fact, every single one of the people sitting up there could do the job. My opinion is he isn't the strongest in that. And since that's one of my highest, besides not halting important projects that we've already got like long in the path, I want to make sure we have somebody on this board that can help us get our budget back in line, because we all know that we should be putting more money into infrastructure. We all know these things, and we still haven't been able to do them. So that's where my reservation lies.
If I may, I think the issue about finances is a red herring. I mean, come on. The finances of this district are not as distressed as some of the board members here are trying to make out. It's really not rocket science. The problem is you either lift the moratorium and you have an infusion of money from water connection fees, or you raise water rates. One of the two.
I think we have to do both, but let's get back onto the subject, and we do have a motion on the floor in a second. Let's have a roll call vote, please.
Vice President Sanders?
Yes.
Director Berenger?
Yes.
Director Farmer?
No.
President Rice?
No.
Madam President.
I'd like to make a statement.
No, I asked Madam President for a.
After you, Director Barringer.
Madam President, you can advise who you would like to have talk.
I'd like to make a statement.
Okay, whatever the President.
Director Sanders just said that the issue about...
Just a minute, Director Farmer, please. I know I often fill silence with words. It's what I do. I was thinking, because I need to be fair to everybody here, and we've been here at this a while, and looks like we are not coming to any conclusion yet. Director Barringer got my attention first. I'm sorry I wasn't looking your direction. Director Barringer.
Madam President, I suggest that we adjourn to a date certain or advance this to the Board of Supervisors.
I would like to also suggest that we have narrowed it down to these 6, but that doesn't mean the other applicants are not still applicants for possibility.
But I think that to address that at this particular time may not be appropriate.
Understood. And Director Farmer.
Director Sanders just said that the issues around finances is a red herring. This district, expenditures have outpaced revenue for years. The only reason that the district was able to, that the Finance Infrastructure Committee, the Ad Hoc Finance Committee was able to balance the budget this year was to basically push all of the improvements for water and wastewater down the road. If these issues were being dealt with, when the Infrastructure Committee, Mr. Barringer and I, met with General Manager Gruber and Engineer Greshams and Supervisor John Alchin, and Engineer Greshams had this 7-year plan for improving the sewer plant, which is in desperate need of repair and upgrade. And the first year was supposed to be $1.3 million to improve the sewer plant. And basically, next to nothing has been done to improve the sewer plant. And this is a major priority. Water delivery, water storage, and improving the sewer plant. These are major priorities. And to say that finances is a red herring when we're not spending money on the things that are most important to this community with regard to what we do. That's all I've got to say.
Madam
Director Farmer, folks. Director Barringer.
And then thank you for recognizing me prior to that. And I am on the same ad hoc committee as Mr. Farmer, and I agree with all of his issues. The problem that this community needs to know is that the general fund has been borrowing money to the water and wastewater department, and in her wisdom and the vice chair, they wanted to put a balanced budget on the table, and they could not balance the budget with the rates that we're presently paying. The rates cannot support other projects. The rates cannot support Parks and Rec. The rates can only support sewer and water and wastewater, and that fact is coming home to roost. I'm as adamant about this as Mr. Farmer is that we do need this infrastructure, but what we need to do is change the rates or find other sources of income, and that is the key. And someone needs to realize that you can't have it. You can legally borrow money to water and wastewater, but you cannot legally use water and wastewater for anything, including.
So I want to bring us back to what the agenda is.
Okay, the agenda item.
And Vice President Sanders.
Well, I was just going to say what Director Behringer says is exactly right. And Director Farmer, I've not heard one recommendation from you about where additional revenue is going to come from to pay for the infrastructure that this town needs.
And I would like to say one thing about the budget, because I was on the infrastructure committee before. But I'm not going to do that right now, because what we're doing is having a meeting to appoint the next director to fill the vacant seat.
And
Isn't this fun?
Are you gonna have-
Okay, so how many of you are ready to go home now?
can we-
Because then we can narrow it down.
can we adjourn?
Mr. Carmel, can you speak to if we were going to adjourn to a date certain, or how we move forward at this point, please? Can you speak to that for us?
I'd probably recommend you continue to a date certain. That would be a continued, an adjourned special meeting. We'll renote, depending on when you set it, we'll renotice it anyway, but then you post on the door and we'll reconvene and you'll reconsider the issue. I mean, I need to indicate that there's no process, no legal process involved. You have 60 days
Right.
to make the appointment. That would end, I think, in this case on October 31st. And however long it takes you to get 3 votes is where it goes. If you don't take action within the 60 days, it defaults to the Board of Supervisors.
All right.
60 days from what date?
From August 31st. That was the effective date of Michael Thompson's resignation.
I would entertain a motion to that if
I have to clarify something. Monique points out my math skills are very weak. That would be October 30th. I think that's Halloween.
Okay, thank you.
I move that we adjourn to a date certain and we poll the board for offline for an appropriate date.
We would have to pull the applicants too, though.
No.
We don't?
Applicants are in.
Yeah, okay. Okay.
It's up to the board as to who they want. I mean, you don't have to have the
Okay.
applicants here. I also need to indicate that there's no defined process. You could limit it to the 6 that were here, to the 12 that started, or to anyone else that's qualified to sit in that chair. In other words, a registered voter.
Are you
In Cambria.
are you saying, without actually saying it in the same words I'm about to say, that we could accept additional applications?
You could tell people to raise their hands if they're interested and do it that way. In other words, there's no legal
right.
requirements.
All right. So is there a second to adjourn to date certain or continue to date?
Second the motion.
So moved and seconded for a date certain to be polled based on the scheduling available for the location and the availability of directors? Is that what you're looking for?
Yes.
Okay. Is that clear?
Well, if you're going to continue it to a date certain, you're going to have to do it right here, right now.
That's fine. Oh, doing it right now. Okay, gotcha. Where's my electronic device?
We're all available on the 28th.
We are all available on the 28th, except I have a meeting that day,
Yeah.
at 4.
Right. Oh, that's an evening. Well,
Board meeting,
4
CCSD
o'clock
board meeting
meeting.
on that day. Right.
And the next day is Friday. I could make that. But I am not going to be here until the 27th.
Okay.
So I would recommend the 29th as the date. And I think that it should be a morning meeting because we could.
On the 29th?
Yes.
29th is Yom Kippur.
Madam President, whether it makes a difference or not, I'm not available on the 29th, so. But I don't know if that makes a difference to the board or not.
Could the 28th work early?
How about Tuesday, October 3rd? How does that sound?
October 3rd.
Cannabis ordinance is being at the.
Oh, you
Are
quit,
you going to
you
that?
quit
The
smoking years
cannabis
ago, babe. Why are you even concerned about that?
That's at the Board of
Well, that
Supervisors. The
explains
Pros
things.
Commission is at 10 a.m., but I don't need
I
to
have no
make that.
problem with the 3rd.
And
I'm okay with the 3rd.
At 2 p.m., I have a dental appointment, but I could probably change that.
We'll do it before, we can do it before you have to go.
Yeah. Okay.
Can we do it?
I just
Yes.
wanted to remind the
General
board that
Manager
I'm, on the 29th, I'm going in for surgery and I'll be out I'll be out probably for a week or so. Hopefully I'll be
What
back.
do we need?
We can do
don't
this
need-
process without
we
the
don't need
general
to-
manager.
You don't need me here.
No, we don't need you.
No offense.
But if you would call from my sick bed and just let me know the results. it would
We'll
be-
Skype you in, all right?
Yes.
I would accept
Beep.
October 3rd as the date certain, and the time of day can be worked on
Can we do noon?
I could do noon.
Noon's fine.
Noon, Director
High
Farmer?
That's
noon.
fine.
Okay, so October 3rd at noon.
Right. And I'm going to channel, since it's high noon, I'm going to channel the Gary Cooper to make sure that we make the right decision. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Gary Cooper.
High noon.
Wow, who's the youngest person on this board?
High noon.
Right now, me.
And that doesn't need a roll call, does it? It's just a...
Yeah, I think we have to take a vote. It was a motion, so
Okay.
roll call.
Director Berenger?
Aye.
Vice President Sanders?
Aye.
Director Farmer?
Aye.
President Rice?
Aye. Please feel free to withdraw if you want to withdraw now that you've seen the fun. Thank you, everybody, both the community and for the applicants. Thank you, everybody. You're welcome for dinner.